potential answers than that. So if you see the editor candidates kind of go through some tough direct questioning, you might actually respect them more when they're finally in charge of this place. The staff votes were 8 to 6 to 1. I did my counting correctly. Ryan, Emily, Andrew. Oh, by the way, pizza.
Thank you.
Oh. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to interview the candidates individually and then together. And you guys will have an opportunity to ask questions. And these are the guys that are going to do this mock editor selection. You might be wondering to yourself, why is there a fake editor selection and a real one? Well, for 12 years, this was the UP's real editor selection. And then 2010, after I got fired, the Student Affairs called this process emotional terrorism. They called her an emotional terrorist. And said that this process was too hard on your porcelain-like psyches. As young people, you don't have the intestinal fortitude to handle stuff like this. Now, sure, you go off to war, but you can't handle tough questions. That's wrong. So there's a real editor selection next week. The thing is, in the 5 years since we've done the fake editor selection, at the request of the students, by the way, we do the fake editor selection because these students want there still to be a fake editor selection. Like I said, it's in their best interest. At the real editor selection, so far an unbroken streak that when you win this process, you win that process, even though the people choosing are totally different. Possibly one reason being that you get your shit together and interview here, you do well there. So, are there any questions about any of this before we start?
I have a comment.
There's 5 copies of the staff notes floating around. When you're done reading them, please pass them around. I'm trying to have a low carbon footprint.
Wait, Neil has I have a comment to make before. Just remember that the purpose of this process is to ask some pretty tough questions of the editor candidates, not to get really personal, not to get insulting, which has happened in the comments at times. So.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about this comments.
We are going to talk about the comments, but let's keep it professional as much as we can.
Right. In fact, I have a feeling, just a sneaking suspicion that's going to come up. All right. You run the staff votes, Ryan. This is one of those dollar coins I like throwing at you guys. Call it in the air. Heads or tails?
Heads.
It is heads. Do you want to go first, second, or third?
Third.
You want to go third? All right, then you're going to go.
You can't do that.
You guessed it. You guessed it from
I do this every year.
Yeah.
How come you guys never catch on? I never like she won last time. She's like, I want to go first. You're not going first. What?
Never happened.
It's not, I didn't say this process is fair.
I didn't say that.
You're going second. All right, call in the air. Emily.
Heads.
Heads.
Last.
All right. Do you know that? No, I'm really, see, I screwed this up. You shouldn't have had this conversation. Now I can't figure out if she really wants to go last, or I should make her go first.
Take your place. She's
She's got a good poker face. Look at that. Third or first? All right, third.
hate it. No.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I don't.
And then you're going first. So Andrew, come sit here in the uncomfortable chair. You guys go to student government. We'll come fetch you when we're ready.
You are?
See, I already screwed that up. Andrew, how many times you run for editor?
This is my third time.
Third time. Who wants to go first with their questions?
Okay.
Jason wants to go first.
No,
No, Jason doesn't want to go first. Why are you back for a third time?
none of the problems that I saw before have been fixed.
Uh-huh.
So, like, doing something new, taking risks, just improving the paper as a whole, bringing ourselves to industry standards even.
So, you were the science editor, is that right? So, what did you do in your section? I mean, you had a bunch of goals last time. Did you meet any of your goals in your science section?
My science section now is finally, and this is delightful for myself, finally kind of self-sustaining. Like, I have a lot of places I know to go to now that I've learned that I can get information. I have sources, I have places to look for stories, I have...
I'm going to interrupt because I like to do that, and I'm going to do that a lot, and most of that's tough shit. Can you answer her question in terms of what work you actually produce. We care less about the creative process and more about the stuff people are going to see at the end of the day.
So like articles I've done specifically.
How many articles have you done this
Um,
semester, online and in print?
the science section or me personally wrote.
You personally.
I wrote the one that just came out on artificial intelligence. I wrote 1, 2 news briefs, another online article, 2 online articles, 6, 7.
So what grade would you give your section?
My section at this point, B+.
B+.
It could still be better. Obviously, you know, it could be better.
You wrote how many stories? Not briefs. How many stories did you write?
Stories.
This says 5.
So 5 stories. And how many weeks are we into the semester?
I don't know.
I think one of the things, now, correct me if I'm wrong, because my memory is going. I think advice we gave twice now, right, was do something other than, try doing something other than science, like
Right.
spread out, try something else. Did you do anything other than science? Did you?
I mean, when science can be, I can do a science news brief, I can do an investigative
Well,
science
I hope
thing.
everybody in the room can do a news brief.
Well,
Just saying.
yes, but the science is a topic, not so much as like a specific thing.
Did you do that? Did you do a science investigative story, a science news story, a science feature? You did all
I've done
those?
science features. An astronaut came to campus. I interviewed and did a feature story on that. I've done a couple news briefs because one of the things I
Not
found.
news briefs.
Just
Stories.
start with stories. Something that's more than
stories.
15
The
paragraphs.
artificial intelligence, the developing on campus. That
Okay.
one just came out.
uh-huh.
I've done different things in science other than.
Have you done more
specific
than previous semesters?
more like different ideas and different ways of going about it? Or written more
More
stories.
product, more content, more.
Is 5 stories more than last time or less than last time?
I think that's less than I wrote last time. But I've also had more people writing stuff for the science section rather than just myself. So I've had more stories in the science section than last semester, but I have written less than last time.
If you do win, who takes over?
Zach, he's not here. He hasn't come in. No.
You talk a lot about this issue with the secret cover story in your statement here. There were, I guess, 3 stories floating around or whatever that week. Which story was the best story?
Of the 3 floating around.
Yeah, that week.
The 3 floating around for cover was the.
Well, we know those. Which one's the best one?
Well, I didn't like the surfing story because
That's the one you didn't like. Why don't you
What
answer
was
the
the
question
best
about the one you liked the most?
the best one out of the 3. I think the wildlife one was the best one out of the 3 because it had information. It was appealing to everybody on campus. Everyone wants to know what the hell's with all the giant
Do
spiders.
you think everyone in this room would agree that the wildlife story was the best story?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Why do you think they would not agree with you?
Because we disagree on what we like in some articles. Like the surf story, some people really liked it, some people didn't like it. Because of just a different interest in going about and writing the story. So not as much as an integrity of the story, but as much
Well, I know
as
a lot of the
story.
comments did not like the wildlife story. So my
Yeah.
point here is, you complain that the story that ran, Smoke and Mirrors, correct?
Yes.
That shouldn't have run because they didn't follow the process.
It also was just a carbon copy of Max Jackson's old smoking story. It really didn't add anything new. If anything, it had less because it wasn't talking about the bill like it was in Max Jackson's story. I mean, the story in itself wasn't necessarily bad. It was just it brought nothing new to the table, and it replaced something that was already finished.
I didn't have a chance to read the 3. Wes, what was the best one?
Oh no, I feel like I'm in this seat.
You're on the panel, you've been there,
Okay.
so we haven't.
No, I mean, I remember going over and proof people didn't like wildlife. I
No,
thought-
what did you think is the best story? I don't care what going over the
What was the third one? You had wildlife smoking, and then what was the third one?
So
Locked
Surf
out.
Club.
Well,
Or locked
no,
out.
no one knew that was
Oh,
being in
that's-
there. That wasn't part of that decision.
all right, well, I guess this is getting already dull. We're only 10 minutes in. So let's keep going.
Okay, so we're not getting anywhere on that.
Why did you get? So you've been doing this. You've been around for a while now. You've been the science editor. How would you explain the staff vote? Because you really tanked on the staff vote.
I mean, I read through them. A lot of people think of me as stubborn, which I am stubborn. But I've talked to a couple people, and they also say that I've gotten better in the sense of edits because that was the biggest flaw that people superstar in me is that, and that I didn't handle taking edits because I didn't like taking edits because I didn't like.
Well, I saw that too, though, this time, that people can still complain that you can't take criticism, that you're stubborn. That's been the same pattern every single time.
I mean,
But
I think I've gotten much better because I actually had a long conversation with Neil about the edits, and it changed my viewpoint on that, and I have been doing better. The reason that I was so hard on it before is because there was many times that somebody changed something that I wrote in the science section about some way of wording something because they thought it sounded better, and it made it factually wrong, and that's happened a couple times, and that's why it became so hard with the edits and why I didn't like it so much.
How do you manage up in those situations?
Manage up.
If an editor makes puts a factor into your story, what are you supposed to do about
I
it?
tell them that changed the factual thing.
And when they apparently, I guess what you're saying is don't listen to you, what do you do next?
Most of the times that I got changed was during proof, so I wasn't there to actually see it and say, hey, this shouldn't be like that.
Why weren't you there at proof if you know that that's a good story?
I mean, I do now. I'm there at proof, but I don't proof my own story, but I do look at it now and take the time to look at it, make sure there's nothing saying, but I'd like to think that people aren't going to change the words too much, the wording too much during proof, since we're supposed to be looking for grammatical things.
Okay, so so the product, the thing that I missed from the old selections is we used to have more questions answered. So if you looked at the paper now, what was the strength of this semester's papers? What was the best thing about the papers? Not about the politics, not about who liked whom or who did what. What was the best thing about the paper?
We've had consistent content, which is a problem we had last semester.
Consistently, like in quality, or you've had enough to fill the paper?
I think our quality has been very good. I think there's some stories obviously could be much better than they were, but we've had consistent content. We haven't been struggling really, like running around with chickens that heads cut off to get
Trying to
stories.
find okay, and
Yeah.
Want some pizza? Have some pizza.
what was the worst? What is still not happening here in the paper? What is missing? What would be your biggest criticism of the product?
Just doing anything new. We haven't done anything interesting. We haven't tried to appeal to a larger audience on the college campus. We haven't tried anything new or interesting. We've had the same website since Lula fixed it up, and that's like.
Does this include you? Does this answer include your stuff?
Well, so this is my next question. If you haven't done anything, if your criticism is you haven't done anything new, right? And you have a whole science section, so you could do something new.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that I have ideas for things I'm trying to do that I haven't gotten to yet because most of the ideas, new things to try to do, I haven't been able to do in a sense because I've been
Give
struggling.
me 2 ideas that would be new that you would try.
Adding video stuff to the science section because actually Ivan had the idea is that
What's videos? Just you gotta look. You're trying to sell these guys and impress these guys that you are going to be a great editor, and Ivan doing video stuff doesn't really tingle my toes. So answer the question a little more
Some
specific.
kind
You don't want to think about his toes.
They're really
doing
hairy.
some kind of media to bring more of a visual.
Give us an
attention.
example.
Like Mythbusters does all kind of things. The chemistry classes do all kind of experiments. We could do their own experiments. Explain
Okay,
how
and
it
why
works.
did so if you have this idea, you haven't been able to execute it in the science section?
We only had the idea like last week or something, so no, we haven't had time.
Do you have any ideas
this-
before last week?
Okay.
Yeah, I've had other ideas.
Tell her.
Okay,
The ideas were mostly just different ways of doing about the stories rather than actually different new content type of things like the media. So story things like the wildlife thing, like it was
The
all
wildlife
safari
thing. You're not even
thing.
answering the question, so let's just continue.
How about 3 cover ideas for next semester?
The preserve, which I had done before. There's
Give him
another-
something you
Oh,
haven't done
new
before.
idea.
It is new.
No, if
No,
you've done it
it's-
before, it's not new.
Let me let some other people speak in here, because do we have to raise our hands, or Wes?
Just- no, just
jump in.
Jump in.
Wes is about to jump in.
Well, it could be more of a collegial process where it goes from person to person to person.
We don't like collegial.
Sure.
Alright, fine, not preserve.
Okay.
Canceling the housing contract on campus. I had a friend of mine come up to me and said, hey, I'm trying to cancel housing and it's working horrendously. I asked him about it. He told me that you had to fill out like mother's maiden name, social security number, financials for the past like 5 years, all of this ridiculous amount of stuff just to cancel housing, just because you don't live on campus anymore.
Mhm.
It's so ridiculous that most people don't even try to get into it. They look at the paperwork and they just give up, which I think is the point of FEU is trying to do. I'm looking into it. I've already interviewed one person.
It's one story.
Okay, next.
Alright, another story is the Wi-Fi on campus. We were going to do like an interactive type of map. Well,
That's already been done. He wants a new idea. You're updating an idea. That's great. It's good journalism to update things. He asked you for new ideas.
the cafeteria on campus, the cafeteria that most of the freshmen go to. I was going to look at it and see how long they leave the food out, the different kinds of food out, because they're only supposed to be out for certain amounts of time. The hamburgers, they leave them out for a long time. The pizza, they do the
Okay,
same thing.
that's a story.
Question, Andrew. So you win. What's of your ideas? What are you putting on the first day? Like, what can they do immediately when different?
Immediately different. Like a story immediately different than putting on the cover.
No. Like you said, you want to go about posting the content differently now. So what does that mean? Is that just video? Or?
No, I mean another idea that I had that I really wanted to do was to attract creative writing people, just to attract different kinds of audience. Because if we attract different kinds of audience, even people who want nothing to do with journalism, they may find it interesting and they start writing. So I was designing a house ad to attract people who write creative fiction or anything like that, and we could put it on the last page of our magazine,
So
just as an
a new
interesting
section.
thing.
So
Yeah, just attracting new sorts of people because people who write stuff like that, maybe they like writing journalism. That's a whole different amount of people.
So we had that before, so are you asking for a new idea or just anything he's gonna do?
I was
He
asking.
said what he would change on the first day.
Yeah, that's what I was
So,
saying.
okay.
And then I also want to bring back editorial section, ed and op-eds, because and I had already talked to another writer who wants to write satire, like it's satire columns on school stuff that they do. Already have someone interested in doing that as soon as we can.
Talk to
Because-
Wes, answer his question. What is Wes?
Something that we can do as soon as we can. I already have a writer who wants to do that ready as soon as we can do it. Just any types of things like that because it's going to attract a different type of audience. Like we write some column about how something works, someone's going to read it, they're going to get informed about it, and they're also going to like it because there's some people who don't like reading hard journalism. Not to say we should stop doing that, of course, but there's some people who would rather watch John Oliver. You guys know who John Oliver is?
Okay, that's just answer.
Answer.
That's ask the answer, so go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a different kind of question. You have 3 advisors.
Yeah.
How would you make best use of them?
Well, Eileen recently did a word thing. She did a presentation on leads and teaching leads to us, which was awesome. And I actually read through that whole book thingy on the website. She showed us that, informed us of different ways of running leads from an actual J school and stuff like that. Like we could definitely do more things like that. Like I know
Workshops.
workshops. There you go. That's what I'm looking for. Workshops with like that. Like Eileen, I'm sure would love to show us more information, teach us more things like that. And you were an editor for a long time, environmental journalism and stuff like that. So maybe we can gain more of an interest in that.
But specifically, how would you, basically choreograph? How would you use 3 advisors to the maximum potential?
I mean, making sure we know exactly like what you guys would excel at, so we know who to talk to for what. Asking for.
He's asking you to answer that question. So what would you do? Give us a you're running for editor and you've been asked these questions. The best thing you can do is give a very concrete answer. Even if these guys don't agree with the concrete answer, they'll appreciate the fact that I'm going to assess your abilities and we'll come up with something later. Give specifics.
I know you write a lot of international politics and things like that, and I know we've been interested in doing the stuff about the presidencies or politics like that. Like you would obviously be the very first person we talk to, things like that. We could probably write it phenomenally with your help. And I talk to you sort of science and things like that. You were environmental journalists, and even with that comes a sort of investigative journalism, which would be the same thing that we would go to you for as well. And then Kresge, obviously, you are phenomenal at pushing the envelope with things, and you're the first person I ever go to when I want to do something risky.
Any other questions or interrupt?
Did we have any workshops this year? Writing workshops or any type of content based
I was
workshops?
talking to us about leads and things like that. Other than that,
So once
He also does, several things, libel things.
They're not as intense as what she's doing. It's been essentially one.
So did you seek out these guys for certain stories that you were working on during the last
Yeah.
semester?
well, you mean like this semester?
Right.
Yeah, the Preserve article that I was going to do about that's further investigative than that one. I talked to Eileen, asked her advice on that, and I haven't had the time to find the time to talk to Neil, but I also want to talk to Neil, obviously, environmental journalist.
Did you ever talk to any of the advisors when you had these problems where people were calling you stubborn when you were an editor?
Yes,
Did you
that's
take-
why I talked to Neil and asked him, and he talked to me about the editing, and I understood his point, and that's why I haven't been so harsh on the fulfilling the edits of my articles.
So why would we want you as an editor as opposed to Emily or Robin?
I mean, Block just has no communication with the newsroom, and
Hey,
like,
can I just between us, like, pretend people aren't listening? If you get a question like that, your best thing is instead of ripping down other people, tell like why you're better, and then rip people. Like, tell why you're great first, and then just throw in a couple digs. But don't start off
What do you
ripping people.
deliver?
I started the science section from absolute scratch. I had no one to train me. I had no one to tell me this is where you go for science stuff. I figured all of that stuff out myself, and I now have a section that's more or less self-fulfilling, and I have places to go. I have an entire way of of running an entire section, I started completely and utterly from scratch. I mean,
Okay.
I can do that. I can figure out problems in the newsroom, how things work. I've built this small section, essentially a mini newspaper inside here from scratch.
So that's your one thing that you think you're better on, or is there others that you think you're more qualified?
Other reasons? I mean, I have ideas. Like, there's so many things that we can do that we haven't done simply because we just know what's
I'm
actually
gonna interrupt
done.
again, I don't, when these guys vote, it's almost like voting for president, you wanna like, I have ideas, well, that's great, but that doesn't mean anything yet, so she's asking, why are you better? I could make the argument, well, Ryan ran a sports section, you ran a science section, you say you built it up from nothing, that's a good advantage, that is one. Are there other advantages that you have over the other two candidates, similar to that, whether they're big or small?
Are you a
You
better
cited a
writer?
legitimate advantage, you started something from
Better
nothing,
writer.
it's yours. What are some others?
I mean, I think you can't really say who's a better writer in sense of things because
Yeah, you can. Who's the best writer out of the three of you?
I mean,
If it's you, just say it's you.
no, I mean like
It's not
Bob's
you
been
say
writing
something.
much longer than I. She is much better at getting the information that you need to get. I'll forget like, oh shit, I should have gotten.
So
this
she's the
information
best
from this
writer.
person. I don't think she's the best writer because she doesn't always make it interesting.
So who is? You, Ryan, or Emily?
I don't think.
Well, what's your strength though? Let's stick to what your strength is. Are you a better editor? Are you more
I think I'm better at making
organized?
something interesting sounding because most of
So
the
who's the
science-
best editor out of the three of you?
Best editor?
Hmm?
Probably Lynch, because he spits out. He has to spit out the articles for the games because there's so many games. So he's probably better at keeping that going and making that smooth.
Okay, so now you've created a science section, which
Yes.
seems to be stable. If you went forward, would you do any other sections? What about beat coverage? What about how has student government coverage been? How's
I don't like beat
administrative
coverage. I don't like
You don't
beat
like
coverage because like everyone coming in here is brand new. No one's gonna want to do write the same exact thing. Plus, we'd be doing them a disservice if we did because like how are they gonna know what they want to write? They need to be able to do a bunch of different things and find what they're interested in. And if they want to take up the beat, and then fine. I mean, essentially, if they're here long enough and they enjoy doing what they're doing and they're good at it, they'll probably become an editor. And that's essentially having a beat. All I write is some science except going into other things.
Ask the
every now and
answers.
then.
We have to have this
Where
for
do
like 5
story ideas
minutes.
come from? If you don't have beats, which produce story ideas from the ground up, so where do your story ideas come from? Top
Story
down?
ideas come from.
Editors telling reporters what
I had, not necessarily. I mean, writers, every single person, new person I come in, I say, hey, you want to write something, you either come to an editor, ask for a story, or if you have an idea, you bring it to them. I've had a writer, Joe Pye, who come in, who wanted to write something about a human submarine. I had no, human-powered submarine. I had no idea it was even a thing. He came to me, he's already looking for a second interview with a guy.
But if
I
you're
mean-
covering a campus, how do you cover a campus without covering a campus? Meaning,
Right, can you have a UP without having a student government coverage or without having
No,
administrative
Just because we
coverage?
don't have beats doesn't mean that we can't cover all the different things. Someone wants to write it, someone wants to write it. If no one wants to write it, we'll find someone and tell them they're writing this. I mean, the beat
But-
coverage is
But
we're
how
just
would you
restricting
know?
people.
how would you know?
How do I know it's something to write?
Right, like so student government meets and you don't have a reporter there and they decide to give themselves $100 raises. How do you assign that to somebody if you don't know what's happening?
I mean, we can still know what's happening even though we don't have one specific person doing it because everybody looks at everything. Like we have Greg, who's been doing student government stuff. He's been looking at it. He wrote the locked out story because one of the student
That's a
government
beat.
people who got
Greg's
employed.
kind of been on the beat. He kind of carved it out, right?
True.
Correct in that is kind of.
No, you're right.
So he created a beat and has been finding out things because he's looking at rocks, and turning them over and finding things underneath them.
I mean, people end up sticking to
Is
one
he here
thing for
next
the most part.
semester?
Yeah.
Oh,
Bruce
hi.
and
Yes, I do.
Wes or Neil, you got more questions?
Yeah, Andrew. I'm gonna throw this in. I'm sorry, Wes. I didn't jump in. So, do you have a training plan? Tell me about training. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of workshops this semester. Quite a lot happened.
I mean, I think it should be the editor's job to train the new person coming in because obviously they're going to be working under an editor to write for the first
Oh,
time.
you mean the top editor or like a section?
No, the section editor.
Andrew,
So
look at Neil, because I don't think that's what he's asking.
Student-led training. I mean, training beyond student-led training, mentoring. I mean,
Led.
do you have a training plan, like extracurricularly, something that doesn't happen just in the newsroom? But do we need training? Let me ask you that. Do we need to augment training that goes on right now?
Or like bringing in people from the outside, teaching them stuff like
So
that.
tell me.
Yeah, I mean, like we can always improve. Obviously, like I think we've
So
been.
do you have, he didn't, you're giving him very vague answers on glazings and corneas here. So if you don't have a specific plan, it's totally cool to say like, great idea, I haven't thought about that yet. But he's asking you what your training plan is. If you don't have one, tell him you don't have one.
I mean, I haven't specifically thought, hey, let's come up with a training plan specifically, but I know many people, like Lulu, who works at Palm Beach Post, I know she'd be more than happy to come
Okay,
in.
so if you don't have a plan,
No,
okay,
So
thank you.
the two issues you wanna correct in the newsroom, should you win, is communication and more video, just so I have my facts straight.
not necessarily just more video, just more, first of all, coming up with more industry standards, which would include doing video, which we haven't really done too much. We've done maybe 2 videos, 3 videos, and
Yeah.
yes, most certainly communication. because
Why haven't you done that video this semester?
Video, we haven't really had anyone interested or doing video. We have someone now, his name's Mike from Al TV. I know,
Alright,
we've done
We
some
got only a
video.
couple minutes left for this candidate. Neil or Wes, you've been,
I'm good now.
Neil, more questions?
I'm good for the moment.
Alright, from the staff, do you guys wanna ask any questions of Andrew? Nobody? Alright, Andrew, do me a favor and go over and get Lynch.
No staff questions?
This chair?
We're holding them for the last two.
And can I ask you guys, what did you think? Now that there's no one here. Any thoughts?
Wasn't prepared.
What?
Doesn't seem
It
prepared.
was not?
I have a question. I was out for a bit. Did he ever mention design and photos?
Not really, did he?
He mentioned you, Ivan.
Mentioned you by name.
Oh yeah, he
Video.
mentioned. I heard it.
Video.
Yeah, you
I
mentioned
never got
video.
those dates.
So part of this process, the reason it's so chaotic like this on purpose is when you're editor, this place is chaotic and you've got to be able to respond. And you know, if we went in a certain order of questions and we asked the same questions, I remember we always used to ask this question: tell us 3 big stories you want to do next year.
We
And then
still-
everyone knew that. And then one year, somebody said, give me another one. And the candidate actually said, that's not fair. It's like, yes it is, because that's how life is. A handout? Wow, look at this.
Another, and I just got one handout.
Is that a selfie?
Yeah, it's a selfie.
No, Ryan.
Did you get this?
10 points on.
I need it, when you give me 4 pages of writing, I need it like a day in advance. I can't get that
Oh,
fast.
no.
I know.
After you myself.
Conflict of interest, Neil.
Conflict of interest.
All right, let's start.
Is he,
He's listed as his reference.
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, let's
Let's
start with
start with-
interviewing
let's
those that your reference.
Let's start with Neil on this one. Neil, go ahead.
Ryan,
Yes.
according to staff comments, you are nice to follow.
Yes.
If you read the staff comments, it's like your biggest liability, if you will listen to staff comments, okay? Even your supporters wonder if you can really run this place, because of your niceness. How do you answer that? How do you respond to that?
As a leader, at the set of president coming straight in, I
What's
can't
that
al-
mean? What's that mean?
I can't always be, Mr. Nice Guy, even if I want to, as a section editor. As a leader, you gotta go out. I talked about, in the plan, setting deadlines, making sure, because they're not always gonna get followed. You gotta make sure you set them to a T. Make sure you're on people about them. Communication is key. Respect is kind of a two-way street,
To be
right?
more concrete, what would you do
To enforce it.
specifically, what tactics would you use to show that Ryan can get rid of the nice guy mantle and be tougher? I mean, what are you prepared to do to come down hard on people when you have to come down hard on them?
Like I said, I have my managing editor behind me as well, so
Who's that?
Emily Crane,
So wait, let me get this. So Emily is going to be your enforcer.
she will assist in enforcing. Obviously, as a leader, you gotta step up and make those decisions, but Emily's gonna be my double down support behind me to make sure that points get across. And that, we communicate with the staff that, when the deadline needs to be reached, when, there's breaking news, when you have to get on top of somebody, you meet with them and you're serious with them.
So you mentioned here the thing that went horribly wrong was UP6, which that was also the secret issue, the
That
secret
was,
time.
yeah, the
Okay.
story in the.
So out of the 3 stories that were floating around, which was the best of those 3 stories?
Out of the 3 in UP6, I'd have to say probably the one with election chair. I felt they went into pretty good coverage, albeit it was on web first. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like they delved into the issue and it's something not everybody's going to talk about. Something SG related.
And that should have been the cover, you think?
Potentially.
Yeah, he was talking
Yeah.
about the issue, there's 3 stories that were up for the cover, so surfing, wildlife, and,
Well, you can pick this.
Mhm.
You can pick that if you want, right?
Well, but this is the.
But if
Yeah,
we're
this
going-
is the big
No.
issue with
If
those
we're,
three.
if we're going
That's true.
between those three, I would like to see the surfing, because we did have some beautiful images.
So that was the best story?
That was the
I
best
think so.
written and best reported story.
I think so. I think there were some holes in the smoking story. You know, obviously, you go into that story, you talk about what kind of punishments, you know, we didn't really talk to people
Yeah.
who got punishments, you know, professors who got punishments, you know.
Addressed in the story, I thought.
Yes. Not completely though. I would have liked to see more student anecdotes about that.
Anecdote.
Yeah, anecdote. On that. And, you know,
Which did any of those stories break deadline? Of those three.
of those three, I know smoking did not, but it came in under the radar.
Did the other two break deadline?
I don't care about deadlines.
Ryan,
So it says here, because the reason I ask this is because in here, you know, that's a good answer. You talk about the content, which one, if you think surfing's best, you think you have, you know, you defended it. But you don't say that here. You say they did not tell Zach the piece was going out. Where was the vote on the cover? Does the cover have to have a vote?
I feel like if you want to communicate with your staff, that's everybody's a part of it. You know, it's not just in one person's magazine in particular. Obviously, the EIC is the head of everything.
Is that how you would lead it then? By just
Yes.
consensus?
Yeah,
Everyone
consensus.
votes on everything
Yeah.
and
Because if there's no other, you know, input about the cover or anything, there could be mistakes. It could be, you know, none of the staff is behind
well,
it.
input's one thing, but you're talking about voting on
Mhm.
every cover and just leading by consensus and
Yeah.
creating a.
To be clear for everybody, your covers under your regime will be decided by vote.
Yes.
okay, so what's new, Ryan, what's new? Should you win, what do you incorporate?
Obviously, a big thing I highlighted at the front was resurrecting video content. We haven't had that in a while.
Tell them how you're gonna do that.
How I'm going to do that? Working as a sports editor, I've implemented video for our gamers for football, you know, the game coverage. Post-game press conferences, we filmed that.
So what are you gonna tell us what you're going to be doing?
What I'm going to be doing with that
Right, that's the question.
is
Yeah,
continuing
do you
that.
mandate editors have to put video in one story
Yeah.
a week or?
It obviously depends on the content of the story. A shorter story, you know, it might be good to add a video, especially if it's a news brief. I would say, you know, one video a week per section, and then
Who's gonna shoot the video?
I have currently some people from LTV, including Mike Gonzalez, who just started with them, is coming over to us, and he's been shooting video for us. I'm
Okay, that's
also
fine.
going to.
Ask an answer, go ahead.
Yeah, sure, Ryan, so I see sometimes there's been some very good journalism going on at UP, but I still repeatedly see stories that go in, uncooked entirely. They're not finished, they're incomplete, or they weren't done as thoroughly as they could have been, and they still go into the UP. And they should have a longer shelf life, because they need work, and they're just sort of stuck in because there's a hole that has to be filled. How are you gonna fix that? I know what you're gonna say in one word, you're gonna say,
Training.
say again?
Training.
Oh, no, that's not what I was thinking, I thought you were gonna say evergreens.
Let him go with it.
Go.
Well,
But here's what I want to ask you, so I'm getting at. Okay, you're proposing evergreens. That has not been able to fly because the evergreen budget was created a while ago, right?
Mhm.
Isn't it like empty now?
yeah,
It has been empty for months, right?
I think
How do you
Part-
fix that?
part of that has been, you know, nobody's push for people to bring ideas to the table. And I want to, when I come to leadership, whether or not that happens, I want to incorporate, you know, at least one evergreen story per pitch. We talk about bringing, you know, 2 story ideas to the table for each. I mean, why not bring, you know, one evergreen idea, 2
Can you tell Neil, like, what you're saying is great. Evergreens are good, crime is bad. But tell Neil how you're going to get the evergreens. Because he's saying that there aren't any now. What are you going to do different? And different, by the way, when you run for this office or any office in the world, different is not, I'm going to just say it differently.
Mhm.
Like, you have to have a plan,
Yes.
right? So
When are
what's
you
your
gonna fill that
plan?
tank? Yeah, Michael was characterizing that, right? How are you gonna fill that tank exactly?
For one thing, I've been going in looking for ideas through that short-term stuff. Talking to other writers, I feel like we don't encourage them to be part of the process. You know, we have our ed meetings and we don't necessarily teach them how to pitch ideas, how to kind of bring things to the table.
I'm still not sure I'm hearing my answer here concretely. How are you gonna get your staff to cough up evergreen stories, write them, and stow them away in that evergreen tank while they're doing all their other stuff? How would you physically do that?
Like what you said about LTV, like you're gonna bring in some bodies to do that, that's a good answer, right? Because it's like, it answers a question. Now, you may not do it, they may not do it, but it's a new idea. So answer Neil with something other than, I'm gonna talk more.
You know what I'm asking, right?
Yes, I completely understand what you're asking. I obviously talked before, non-concrete, bringing more ideas to the table, recruiting more people. I also want to go out into the community. People talk about us kind of cliquey, not necessarily, involved as much in the FAU community. If you kind of go out and build a rapport with, groups,
Neil,
people.
do you feel like you're getting your answer?
I'm still not getting it, but
Okay, can we
Just
move
try.
on?
Well, I
Are you
have an
gonna move
idea.
on?
Okay, so we don't know how you're gonna get the evergreens. Do you have 3 ideas for evergreens?
For evergreens. I want to do a story on student tattoos, best, worst, where do you go, best places, worst places, something.
Okay, tattoos.
Okay, next.
I wanted to ask students, best experience, worst experience, a lot of students come from different places, different things.
We can expand.
Best experience in
Like
life.
ever?
Like, pick a topic,
You pick a topic, we're asking you.
no, I'm saying, we pick a topic as a thing like, worst night out.
Here's another piece of advice. When you give ideas, don't give ideas that rely totally on other people doing the work for you. Like, I'm gonna go out and ask some people some questions, they're gonna give me gold, and I'll write it. Because you're at their mercy.
It sounds like a man on the street.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like that's not a real idea because you don't know what they're going to say yet. Give her something you know is an idea. Answer Sonia. Tell her this is a story.
See if you can live at FAU 5 days for free. No house,
Okay.
no meal plan. See if you can live 5 days.
Who's going to do that story?
I'd be willing to do it.
Give her a
Okay,
third
one
one.
more.
Did you know this question was coming? You talked to some of our own editors, right?
Yes.
You knew that Sonia always asks, give me 3 story ideas.
Or less, Jason.
Or one of these guys said. How come you don't know this? You knew it was coming.
A little nervous, and I left my sheet in the other room.
Okay, that's okay.
That's good.
What's the third one?
I want to do a story about housing moving away from doubles and moving into super singles, which is basically
Different housing.
double
Got
room turned into a single.
What was the best story of the year?
Best story of the year,
Or the semester, I guess.
Semester.
semester.
Only prints every other week now. Not too hard to.
Oh, it's every other week?
Well,
Yeah.
Thought
Web
we're going
Daily,
back to week.
Nope.
Web Daily.
What?
Web Daily, just so you guys know, we own web every day.
Okay.
Oh yeah, every day.
Go ahead,
It's a
Rob.
separate
You
debate.
wanna sit in the chair next?
I want.
Thank
I
you,
have a
guys.
question. I like that.
Alright, best, I would say, my own about Owls After Dark.
And why was it the best?
It was kind of unexpected idea.
So was it the best
Yeah.
because it was unexpected?
I didn't think it would come out the way it did. It was kind of,
Can you answer his question from a reader's perspective? Which one has the best written and best reported? Not because you liked it or the process was really nice or it came out
Or
unexpected,
you met deadline? Yay.
but because the readers got something out of it. Tell him which
Yeah,
one the best for that.
I think it's the best because I brought something to your attention people didn't know about. It was literally a group I looked up on social media, kind of different exposure, different group, goes rain or shine to kind of meet the football team win or loss. And I thought that was pretty cool and I wanted to go out there.
What's the best non-sports story?
Non-sports.
Can also be yours.
If you read something that's not sports,
You did?
okay, but you don't want necessarily
Someone
sports.
else.
want to see Yik Yak. I thought that was stepping in a different direction for me, and it was something, you know, not everybody was covering immediately. We kind of hopped on it first.
So that was the best non-sports story of the semester.
Was Yik Yak, and then staff would agree even?
It's a matter of opinion, I would say.
Well,
Not everybody's
There's a
opinion.
consensus among opinions. What do you think? The
I don't think
staff-
there's a consensus among the opinions on that.
What was the best news story of the semester?
That's not news, Yik Yak?
That was
Yik Yak was the news.
What's the newsiest story? I'm trying to get to a point here because tell me something. Greg's story on student government.
Mhm.
I happen to think that was the best story so far this semester, but I'm wrong apparently. Tell me why I'm wrong.
You can hear me.
We're talking about
Is
the
that
guy,
Kennedy?
the guy who
Never, Mo, never.
locked out of the elections office.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I think that's the best story and I'm always right and ruggedly handsome, tell me how I could possibly be wrong.
I thought the Yik Yak story applied to more people. You know, you have student government, which is kind of a secluded own group, and then you have an app like Yik Yak, and a shooting threat happens, and that kind of raises people's awareness.
Oh,
Well, do you have something
okay,
directly
correct
germane?
me,
I have
but isn't
a
everybody
question.
allowed to vote
What
in a
makes it the
student
best?
government election? Like, that would be the entire campus, right?
But we've covered it before that only less than 2% of the population actually votes for
What percent of the student population pays for student government?
everybody.
What percent of the population is worried about someone with a fucking gun on campus?
I'm not saying the stories aren't valid. Okay, here's what I'm getting to, and I'm gonna spend more time. We're gonna spend more time with you than with Andrew because this process
You
is
knew it.
not fair, and you won the staff one. It's more likely that it's gonna come down to you and Block. I'm just guessing based on that, Andrew's answers, right? If he would have come in here with guns blazing, maybe he would be, but
But not actual votes,
No.
but yes.
right. Thank you, Max. One big set.
But Max,
So
So-
Yik Yak was about what?
Tell him about the Yik Yak story. Give him a short bullet.
So, student made a post on the app, said that he had a friend who said he was going to shoot up the school, showed him a picture of a gun during the start of the week, and raised awareness. Police were immediately dispatched, found the student in the middle of the night. He turned himself in, and the day after, up police presence all over the breezeway.
Okay.
As a
Because
result.
Yik Yak cooperated, they turned over their
Yeah,
information.
yeah.
That would be the net.
So here's my question to you. You want to crowdsource your covers. This staff, you don't even know their opinion yet. Like you were asked what the consensus for the staff is. You're gonna have your staff decide on a cover. How many professional publications do you think work that way? What percent?
Zero.
What?
Probably
Zero?
about zero.
Why do you think zero?
I think that in the professional landscape, people pitch their idea, and whichever one the EIC picks, kind of, you go because you're the best idea. I think so. Let's do it.
But you wouldn't do that here, why?
I feel like with the student newsroom, you have to include everybody in the process or things.
Is there somewhere
Why,
between?
hold on,
Wait,
let's
why
see.
do you have to include everyone?
Yeah.
I feel like including everybody in the process, you lose less people. People don't feel discouraged that they're not being heard. They feel like their opinion, matters.
But what's the purpose of the student newspaper?
Took the words out of my mouth.
To inform the student public and to create train writers.
Okay, and so you're gonna give your beginning journalist, the person who just walks in here the first time, is gonna have a vote on your cover story as much as you who've been here a long time, or as much as anybody else in here, and that's going to make them wanna stay.
I think so.
Or maybe they'll run screaming because there's no order in here.
Potentially.
But why would they have an equal vote if they have no journalism background, no experience, nothing? They just walk in, they know nothing about journalism, yet their vote is equal to yours and to the experienced people in this newsroom.
I mean, they have
No, I'm curious, do you vote on your sports stories?
not usually, no.
Why?
Um,
If this is such a great idea.
when I pitch my sports stories, it's a little different because I was a little autonomous in my work, and
But she's asking, you don't have to.
Would you be open to having the staff going forward
Yes.
vote on all your
Because I think we should all
stories?
vote against anything that has anything to do with football or basketball. Let's just cover the fencing team. And if I could rally enough votes, you should be reading about fencing. Is that a good idea?
Can you just answer her question? Why didn't you, if you were gonna come to this group with this idea to have the staff vote on the covers, how come you didn't do that leading up to this 4 stories? You said autonomous, you didn't have to do it,
I
but
have to-
you're running on this platform, so you would wanna do it leading up to this, why didn't you?
I think before the process started, I never really thought about it. You know, I worked with
So you haven't tested this theory out at all? You're gonna make this big change in the way UP runs, and how much testing of it have you done?
not much.
Tell me any testing. You said not much, I mean some. Tell me the sum.
I mean, we've done it before. We brought 3 covers out, bam, bam, bam. What one do you think is the best? During Friday meetings, we'll post them up. We did that for the last couple of months.
Wasn't that really just for the same story? 2 of them were the same and 1 of them was wrong. They were like they were designed. They weren't different stories. They weren't like every story in the paper, pick which one's going on the cover.
Now, when they vote for these cover stories, is all the staff actually reading the story, or are they just looking at an image?
I would say
Like this time that you trotted them out on the,
No one's telling their
did
story.
they actually read it?
No.
Then how can you vote on a story to be the cover if you don't read it and you don't know what's in it? So they just voted on an image? I think that looks like a good story, so I'm gonna vote yes.
that would be very problematic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with the, because you said there are a bunch of holes in the smoking thing. Like, you didn't like this story because it has holes in it, which you're right, it has holes in it. But if enough people voted for this story, it wouldn't matter, right? And it'd run anyway.
Potentially, yes.
Is that a good idea?
Not necessarily, but I don't think it's a good idea to take a story and go underneath the staff.
I don't care about that.
Yeah, we don't.
Like, just to clarify what she's saying, because you have this quizzical look on your face, and some of you guys do too. They don't care because the way I understood it, and correct me if I'm wrong, and there could be communication issues, everything's open for discussion, but you guys had deadline problems. These guys don't care about deadline problems because when deadlines don't get met, people get fired. We don't do that here, we're a learning paper. So Block wrote a story and said, if the other stories don't come on the deadline,
Which, by
mine's
the
won't.
way, was an evergreen.
Right. So basically, the other 2 stories were late. They weren't done on time, so Block put her story in there, theoretically to teach the staff a lesson. Apparently, the only lesson they learned is that's not fair. So,
And they didn't get to vote.
and there was no vote. So everyone felt butthurt because they didn't know that story was coming. So my question to you is this: why do you think that, like, when I asked you about other papers, other publications that let people vote, that it's either 0% or total democracy? It's either dictatorship or democracy. Do you know how most publications decide things? That there can be give and take and back and forth, but it's not a vote?
Perfect democracy.
It's like a discussion and then there's a decision. Why do you think it's either only one way or the other way?
I mean,
As you're thinking about the answer, listen to this process.
Can I rephrase the question here?
Oh, please, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Like, and I'm playing off of what you're asking, but I'm gonna say this a different way.
Please do.
I
I'm
think
not
we're
doing
in the
that.
same vein. Brian, what happened there in UP6, right? I read staff comments, there's a lot of anger over what some people thought was a very non-transparent process. Things being substituted last minute, staff not being told. Cover story being put out there that wasn't, I guess wasn't going up, right? Okay. Now, I understand your argument that you want to have votes and you want to be transparent. It sounds like you want to make sure you communicate. Like, the editor-in-chief is empowered to do executive decisions every now and then. Sometimes you just have to make the executive decision. To hell with what everybody else thinks. You're your editor-in-chief. You have to move the ball forward. So here's my question. Can you make an executive decision that goes against the grain of the staff? Do you feel like you have the ability to not play the democracy game and say, this is a hard call, but I have to do this, and I'm sorry, staff, but this is my decision, and I'm going to go for it, regardless of your thoughts about it.
Yes.
Make an executive decision.
yes, I believe I can.
Explain how.
Actually-
Convince me that you can do that.
Convince Neil by giving an example of a decision that you made that was against popular decree.
Did you have a tough decision you had to make this semester?
Like, I don't wanna hear that like you can do it, I want an example of you doing it. And this is, by the way, really important because most of the staff votes for you, they're for you because they like you. And our question
nice.
is, what happens, you're nice, what happens when you have to make a decision when you're not being nice? Do you lose all of the support? Your support only because people like you or because they trust your news judgment? They trust that you're going to lead them in the right way. Sorry, let him answer his question. There'll be time for staff questions.
Get backstory, I'll go back to that. I picked and choose kind of the elements within that to cover, for example, talking to the student who made the threat himself.
What was unpopular? That's what he wants to know.
Right, I wonder, what was the unpopular part of what the rest of the staff was like, dude, Lynch, that's wrong, man. You can't do that shit. And then you did it anyway, and it worked out. And then everyone was like, wow.
Or it didn't work out, but at least you did it.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
But people were unsure that I could even get the guy in the first
That's
place.
just doubting whether you're going to get a guy. They weren't saying, don't go get that guy. We're asking for you to make a decision. Okay, let's do this. Wes, when you were editor, there were some covers. Wow, look at that one. There were some covers on the you put up. One was Andrew Shark's story, and there were some other stories. I remember Max had opinions. You put up some stories and you voted. Remember? And then you had to make a decision. Was that decision unanimous?
No.
Was
No,
it painful to
was
make?
not.
Were you concerned making that
No,
decision?
no. I was only concerned that they wouldn't like it, but at the end of the day, that didn't matter. You know, you just run the best story.
So basically, this is what I'm getting at. This is really important. Wes did the same thing. Had a vote. The vote was split, and it was like difference of one or two people. So he went with the democracy, but he pissed off a bunch of people. So I'm wondering, are you trying to do this democracy thing to keep people from being upset? Because when you vote, if the vote's 5-4, 4 people are very upset.
Or are you doing this because that will produce the best result?
I believe that it'll produce the best result if you get everybody involved and kind of talk about it. And
But I'm confused. I'm still confused on how do they vote for it when they haven't read the story. Like that to me is just baffling, to be honest.
Well, I think if they vote, he's thinking like they're looking at just the
Covers,
size of the cover, like how it looks.
So we're deciding journalism by how pretty it is.
But that's where he's going.
I mean, that's been.
That's true. I should ask him. Is that,
I mean,
is that what we're doing?
But
Even
that's what I'm saying.
professional-
That's what's baffling to me. That how can even anyone on the staff in good faith, cast a vote on a story they haven't read?
Isn't this what you have editors for? Do you have are you editing, is the EIC the only editor in the room? Are there other editors who are editing the writer's stuff?
You have other writers that you can go to, that's your second editors.
Right,
Obviously,
and so what are they doing?
they're involved in the process
What does that mean?
They're voting.
for the voting process. They're involved with that.
So their question is, why would?
Why don't you just have a meeting with your editors and make a decision?
Because otherwise, you could have like 10 new people vote for one thing and 3 editors vote for the other, and the one they picked goes.
Can't you just ask the new people anyway, just as a courtesy, and get them involved in the paper that way? Does it have to be an official vote
Does
to get some consensus going?
it doesn't, like you suggested, it doesn't necessarily have to.
I've got a new question. So you're worried about alienating people, it sounds like alienating people who come here who are new, right? So what's your, do we need more people?
I think you never have,
Based on this,
enough writers. It's always good to have people coming in.
So what's your plan?
Does it tie into training? Because my question was about
Yes.
training.
Yes.
It will tie into training. I set up a plan with Neil, going over training aspects to make sure that our writers, are trained, because I feel like
can you give her a
Well,
30-second
that
bullet?
means that, well, first of all, you have to assume that you have writers to train, so how are you getting writers?
recruitment, which I don't think we did enough this semester.
We never do enough, right?
Never.
Never.
So what are you gonna do? Give her 15-second answer. What you
15
gonna do?
Section editors into certain classes, split up responsibility, make decision, quick pitch to people.
Speaking of classes, that's one of your things you're gonna do.
One of the things I'm gonna do.
Give her another.
Return to tabling, we didn't table at all, this past year, especially died off. During the end of the semester, I wanna go back to doing that,
Doing what, I'm sorry?
tabling.
So you got
just
to table
wanna
on
go
the
out
Breeze way to
and-
recruit.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, tabling the verb.
Did that work?
Okay.
Did I get us a lot of new people?
Oh, no.
We got us a few,
Okay, so
but we
what,
didn't table at all this semester, so
at all, really?
Yeah.
I thought that's a section editor responsibility, why didn't they do it? You were a section editor, why didn't you do it?
I brought it back. I went out last time.
Okay, good, so so basically this is something that dropped off, but
You
you did it.
recruited
You did
before.
something.
Yeah,
Give her another thing you're gonna do. You got recruiting, you got classes, you got tabling, what else?
and then finish off with training. When you talk to people, obviously we're gonna offer them, the training. That
Tell
you're
Wes what you're gonna do for training specifically.
training specifically. Start off first week, couple week training thing.
Mandatory.
Started. Yes,
Mandatory.
I like to set that up. First week, set up 3-hour class, basics.
Who's teaching the class?
Neil has talked about helping out, so it's
Have
actually
you talked to Neil about this?
yes, we set up
And it's
a
a 3-hour class.
3-hour
What
class.
if I don't wanna do that on the weekend?
I don't know if I would have worked it if
I just can't do it. Like if I don't wanna sit down for 3 hours, I'm listening to Neil, no offense. Then
For an hour, I don't know how far.
so then what happens? I can't work.
Um,
What happened to your democracy, man?
Now I'm unhappy.
What if the staff votes not to do this?
staff votes not to do this. We gotta shorten the session. However,
So you would consider it if the staff
Yeah, I
voted
would.
no, you would
consider
you
shortening
would
the
then
session.
move that in
Yeah,
that direction.
Taking
So really,
Yeah.
you're like communists. Like everyone's equal and totally,
Each according to his needs.
yeah.
Did you do this with your sports writers? Did they all
That's
take
pretty-
a 3-hour class?
no.
They take a 1-hour class?
What
I-
training did you give them?
I told them, gave them examples, sat down with them.
But
went
you
over-
have Neil going to do training for the entire staff. Did you try a little pig spoon at Baskin Robbins taste of that by having Neil talk to your sports writers?
I did not.
Why? You're going to make these big changes in the newsroom based on your intuition or based on experience?
How long did
Is
you,
there
I mean,
any-
did you have any writing training before you started writing sports?
When I came out of high school, I took a class in journalism and wrote for the school paper. So when I came in, I had a little bit of experience. When I first got here, Wes brought me up. He was kind of the guy who taught me, a lot of stuff that I know today. He kind of took me under his wing.
Is there anything that you implemented in your section this semester that you said, wow, works great, and now I'm going to make the whole staff do it if I become EIC?
One thing I did, I set up a weekly feature for my section called the 11th Hour, kind of did a recap
Where'd that run?
on web. So I wanted to do that for other sections, resurrect the police blotter, kind of highlight crimes of the week, maybe the most interesting, crime, something out of the blue maybe.
And why do you want to tell them why you want to do this?
I want to kind of make it in a form that people can. Yeah, and I also want to double down on web.
Wait, what?
Like give it up or don't? I thought you-
Beef it up, beef it up.
Oh,
I mean,
Beef it up,
beef it up.
beef it up presence. Looking at web, a lot of it is sports content. I
From your section.
from my section.
So your section is filling the website.
Yes, I'd like to
That's
have all the sections doing that. Have, web specific stories. I talked about.
Is
How
there a
you
reason
gonna-
the other sections aren't doing it?
I don't think they've taken the chance to really double
do they have
down.
the time to do it?
I think they do. Just finding right. I mean,
They don't have the
Look, yeah,
leadership?
I don't think it's not they don't have the leadership. I think it just depends on the section. I mean, obviously my section is a little bit more friendly to web in terms of you have game coverage and things like that.
You are totally underselling a good point here. You started the 11th hour and you're talking about police blotter. You're talking about populating the web with things that don't take a lot of time. That's what these guys want to hear. They want to hear answers that are like, oh, if we had $1 million and 100 more people, we could kick some serious ass. They want to hear like, you created something for the web that doesn't take a lot more time and still add something to the web. The police blotter wouldn't take a lot of time, add something to the web. Go, that's really good. You gotta go with that.
Are you going? If
Yeah.
you don't, then are you going to try and implement that anyway?
I will push with Patrick, talk to him about adding more web news. There's the count of 10 news stories across the board for the whole semester, 10 to 15 for web. So we need to increase that,
Okay.
obviously.
Are there any other questions from this panel before we go?
Ryan, do you have a really big idea? Like for
In terms of-
innovating? Yeah, something that you really, if you could do one big thing that you think would be, a significantly, useful impact to the UP.
Don't look at any notes, just talk to me.
Somebody asked this question last time, whose big idea question? Didn't somebody?
What's your vision? What's your big?
That's, you know what I'm saying by that, right? Yeah, kinda.
I want the UP kind of be the center of FAU news content. And I know it's kind of a recycled answer, it goes over and
Yeah, so
over.
don't
Okay,
tell
but that's
us.
not,
Yeah,
what's
so
that
don't give
mean?
it to us.
What's that mean though? What's that mean?
What would you do to make that happen?
I expand upon our beat system, expand training, make sure that, writers are looking out for these stories, make sure we're active.
Yeah, these are
Wow.
concrete answers.
Yeah.
Like your 11th hour answer, like your LTV answer. Give him an answer. It's like that. That's really concrete.
Big idea.
All right, tell you while you're thinking about that, you guys on staff, any questions for Ryan?
Gideon Grudo has a question.
By the way, we have former editors. They're at work today, tuning into this stuff instead of working. So
He says, "What's the makeup of his staff? What does he do if he loses?"
Makeup of my staff. If I lose,
Like, well, what's? I think it's two separate questions.
what he wants to know is if you're talking about making these big changes, you're obviously going to change the way the staff is set up. Give Gideon a concrete answer.
alright, so
One example, not even the whole thing. Give him one example so he can trust that the other stuff is good.
talking about training, I want to set up a position for a recruitment retention editor.
So you got one editor to do recruitment and retention on staff. You got someone in mind.
Yeah, I talked to Greg about filling the position.
So Greg is not going to be writing anymore. He's one of your better writers, and he's not going to be doing writing anymore.
He's not going to focus specifically. He's recruitment and retention editor.
He
He's
wants
still
that?
right.
Is it his choice or is it your choice?
Greg, you want to do that? Okay, I'll take that as a no.
How much have you written this
Hold on,
year?
no, let's answer Gideon's second question. So if you don't win, what are you doing?
We,
In terms of organizing
in his
staff,
defense, we
rising.
did talk about it and agree. Like, I would write on the side while being a recruitment and retention editor.
On the side. Okay, on the side. All right. What are you going to do if you don't win?
If I don't win, I'm going to work to implement the ideas I have here. I
Maybe
feel,
what title are you going to have?
Block talked to me about being the social media editor.
So you'll be social
kind of
media
big-
editor? You want that?
Yeah.
And Andrew?
Andrew has not talked to me yet.
Okay.
He hasn't talked to me yet.
Other questions, and we're going to wrap this up and
Well,
get to
how much
everything.
have you written this?
I averaged, looking at the web, I averaged 4 to 7 stories
A week?
a week. And then I had,
Briefs or stories?
Like more than 5 or 6 paragraphs.
more than 5 and 6 paragraphs. I had about 4 a week, 4 to 7 in that range, depending on the week.
That's accurate.
And then,
Some weeks more, some weeks less, but it probably averages out.
and then in terms of issues, some I had 1, some I had 2. And football issue was all mine, except for an article by Zach in there. That was all mine. And then I think there was only 1 issue. You
Okay,
could
that's
say-
ask and answer. We got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does the staff have questions?
Yeah, I got one. Who's gonna take over sports?
I talked to both Brandon Feeney and Josh Talero about filling the position. It looks like right now Brandon's the front runner.
Have you trained him at all, or just, so
Yeah,
is he gonna write 4 to 7 stories and over 200 words in each story and like what have you? Like, are you planning on doing that?
Okay.
Yeah, he said
Alright.
he's
All right,
Currently-
good. Ask and answer. Good question.
Are these only sports stories you're writing, or have you gone beyond that?
a lot of my writing has been sports, but I have branched out before, done news stories, done feature stories, things like
But this semester it's been sports.
yeah, a lot of sports.
Any other questions from the staff? Or?
Are we gonna be able to ask legitimate questions while we're in here?
Yes, you
Think
will.
have real answers?
I don't know about the. I can't promise you the real answer. I
But
can
you
promise
guys
you
will
that.
allow them to answer?
I'll-
But we
well,
don't want the inside,
It's a real question.
like,
They're real
it's
questions.
a real question, not like, how come you
No.
didn't do this, but yeah, okay.
if there's one thing I hope you guys are getting a sense of here is no one gives a crap about how hard it is to do your job in this newsroom, right? It's about the product online, and in print. Everything else is wham, wham, wham. All right, other questions from the staff? You guys voted for him. Do you want to ask any softball questions to help your man out? Because I don't think he's acquitted himself real well.
Is there a video department under your leadership?
Yes, I've talked to Mike about setting it up.
You talked about that.
So that's LTV people you've talked to.
No,
Yes.
he's coming in specifically, I heard.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
Specific.
good creative idea. I love that.
And I've also talked to reporters about using their iPhones. That's what I did with my own section in terms of making a video. You don't necessarily need.
You know what Videolicious is?
I do.
But do you, Ryan?
I do not.
Okay, so you haven't done a lot of research on how this is actually going to work. Okay. Any other questions, Max?
The state of our news biz is horrendous, abysmal. People don't even know they exist because they.
Okay, the
have-
news racks are terrible. What are you going to do to fix them?
What are you gonna do?
We have money in the budget. We should be able to fix them.
Do you have
Just
people-
give them.
We have money in the
Is that
budget?
true?
Business manager, do we have money in the budget?
Not
He's the business manager. I don't know if it's in the budget.
Not in the next fiscal year.
How much money is that?
$13,000.
Do we currently-
Why it doesn't have to be $13,000.
If it fits for the school, then yes. Our money, different maybe.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a complete overall.
Do you have staff willing to help you?
Yes, Ivan
when you
has
win?
talked about. Mo has talked about just even getting plexiglass, getting some painting the boxes.
Okay, so we'll have an arts and crafts day. Okay, any other questions?
I wanna see
You're
that.
saying you pushing out more content and what have you, but how are we gonna get people to read it?
Are you asking a marketing question?
What more so like marketing slash
Promotion?
So we're putting this, but how are people gonna know to read the UP? How are they gonna know that it's gonna be the main?
Okay,
news
so we're asking a
source for
marketing and
KU?
promotion question. You know, give him an answer.
Well, that's good, because he said he was gonna do social media anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously,
So you can-
social
He
media
wins.
plays a huge role in that. Looking at it, I've run the sports section. Tagging people is huge. If you tag people involved with the story, they tweet it out to their followers.
So tagging people is one answer. You want to give him any other
Yeah.
ideas?
Is there anything else besides social media?
Come on, you guys are the generation that gets bored really quickly, but you guys aren't answering very succinctly.
And then besides social media, getting the word out there, having some
How do you get the word out there?
things like merch, tabling, stickers, tell people that we have a website.
Any
Not
comments at the end?
I've talked to readers, have walked up and it's like, wait, you have a website too? People don't know
So
that.
tell them what you're going to do to promote the website.
Do things like, obviously tabling, tell them, hey, we have a website, put it in the magazine a little bigger than just on the front.
Okay, so
section.
basically the same things we do, but more. Any other questions? Can you go get go get Block, please?
Yeah.
We had like a 4-minute recess. That took like an hour.
You want to recess?
Yeah.
Everybody stand up and stretch your legs.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to 4-minute recess, which is
Whoever
usually
wants
10.
pizza, there's pizza.
So, all right, before you go, as you guys are milling out, just one thing. You understand why we ask the questions the way we ask the questions now? All right, because the whole point of this is, if you go for a job interview and you answer questions the way these guys are answering them for editor selection, you will not get the job. This is not just constantly asking tough questions. You can ask tough questions in real job interviews. And when you say things like, I will solve the world's problems, lions will lay down with lambs, it'll be awesome, and you don't give me anything concrete, you don't get the job. Also, in a leadership position, you don't get the gig either. So, those of you who voted for any of these candidates, at the end of this, after Block's interview, we can get all three of them together. Max can ask his secret question, which I'm perplexed about, and then you guys will have a chance to comment and say what you think about these people. So, bathroom break. Thank you very much. That's how you think it's going so far.
All right. How long have you been doing
I don't know. It seems like it took like 9 hours.
it?
3:11.
How's it looking?
He came around quickly.
Well, because why did Andrew go quickly? Because we decided that he probably doesn't have a chance in that, right? One scout. I know. It was his leg was shaking.
Really hard about it?
This is great for him. That sounds good.
We're saying
districts,
You go on,
like on campus service,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
That's why I get hands on the cover.
Yep, yep, then you ask them for their name, their age.
You do want to go on and
I'll put that in your email.
yes, you know, like, you start asking stuff, get it on paper, and then we sit down on Tuesday, and we can go over line by line, how we're.
Yeah, it's, they're really easy write-ups, like 200 words, and I'll give you it's quick turnaround,
They all
Sunday.
combine because
Okay.
it's
If we really need one Monday.
It's almost stressful this game. Explain why.
Because
I promise you.
Just like last game, Photoshop can be done in an hour, 2 hours, yeah.
And everybody didn't care, I just wanted to job.
it'll be during the
Very
day.
cool.
Yeah, if you're not on campus on the
This
weekends,
isn't fair, we don't want it.
yeah, there's.
Like, it wasn't like-
It's just different. It's not
Yeah.
2019.
All of the different classes, like it's class 2018, class 2017.
It's
Go on Facebook,
That's
or
why
it's all like,
sure,
let's
sure,
go
it's there.
to why do you think
I
it's
think,
the
I
best
think,
service?
I think, if we go one-to-one and someone's sitting here and they wait for this part to be over, it's less chaotic and less stressful.
I read some stories
This is like jumping
Okay, that's like, that's my Twitter, it's a social media thread.
Well, they kind of know in terms of like, anyone can jump into this. There's a pro member, this guy Gary Grinder, and his video channel. He would jump in and interrupt. I just didn't change the time. Wait a minute, I thought last question was like, you answered the last goddamn question at that.
I mean, I've reached out to them
And then stop, like, like that was the only policy. Really.
I don't even remember
Yeah.
the question is just jumping.
I know that,
You were gonna say that should be your title.
I know that, like, because when we were
There was
talking
interaction.
about, she's like, yeah,
Yeah,
I
all the
watch
time.
multimedia.
I don't think it ever, we used to joke.
I was like,
Instead of
why
why
are you making me entire multimedia?
That's it.
Yeah.
She's like, no, because you're for news.
Oh, yes, that's a stealth about being aggressive. Like that guy was.
I guess.
Yeah. Reality.
I'll be yours.
Yeah, because like,
That's what it's first.
They have
I'm not gonna
they have a board,
like,
right?
videos
So they
and
have
set
to-
for the
They're
next
fast.
semester.
Still have to.
So I can
I cried, but only after.
kind of, it's able to kind of really what I.
Yeah, I held it up, I published it together, I won,
No, I think she's good.
Except for
We got a couple.
Actually, I was glad.
Why?
So this I know which one this
What?
I guess I know which
They were
Actually, I wanted to.
I went out and I was like, well, the first thing I did was everybody voted for me. It was like, because the guy already got this part guy.
Someone wrote my fucking name on there. No, not you, not you. I just found out it was
And it was Matt Holland, who's not.
I'll make it.
And so I was like, I'll give it a go for Sonia.
Like, I'm.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying I know which one.
Yeah, and I mean, I guarantee she do.
I also,
Did you know, like, mine before you even, really, but now you do?
I can understand that. It's just like.
And then I was gonna cry.
You know.
I called my mom.
Relentless thing.
I was like, did you win?
That's right. That's all that was like, this is good.
and you proved it wrong and stuff, and you actually said.
You know, this was my
You actually said.
I mean, they didn't want to see it.
Yeah, and someone knows my vote is.
Yeah, okay, that's what's up. And the out is like, it's the library, that was
Oh, I remember.
Okay.
and he was like, well, I mean, half that's traffic,
No.
so it's hard. And oh my gosh. I'll be like,
Jada didn't become editor, but.
I've had people added so close, like Rodney Lemon, so Marshall Price, who ever looks at
I had to post one page right to the line, and I had to put my hand.
Like, which he has now.
I was so close.
As everyone's gonna scroll back in,
He was the only one.
I would like to ask you guys a question. Anybody want to? Hey! Anyone want to tell these guys what you think about the process so far? If we're being unfair, if we're doing this wrong? Any thoughts?
Go ahead.
Just wait, what do you think we're doing? We're waiting you guys. We're on your ass all the time. How are you doing?
She's asking a question.
Got a question.
Oh, sorry.
For a regular interview for like just any job, is it sort of like this? Like, questions are really, really tough, I mean, and it's like.
That's the point, is that
It won't be
any
that
interview
tough.
after this will never be this tough.
You should
And that's the whole point of doing this.
I can tell you this, and if he's listening, Jake Smith was a former editor here, and he went to interview in Washington D.C. with PETA, and that position was a good level position. So it was when you're an executive, you have all-day interview. You meet with some people, and then another group of people, and then you go out to lunch with another group of people, and different configurations will ask you tougher questions. And they will invite like 5 people. By the end of the day, like 2 won't even come back after lunch. So it's, I'm done, can't handle this, and they walk away. Jake got the job, even though he's from FAU. I don't even know what that was, because he said, they did. And he said that he got the job. He actually attributes this to running for editor because he said he could just ride it out. You know, it was nerve-wracking to go to different bunches of people, and you're out to lunch, it's still a job interview, and you gotta eat. And then you're like, let's meet some other executive people. Let's meet the people in this department. And every one of them is really a job interview, right? So that level, you're right. When you get out of college, it won't happen right away. Hopefully all of you will rise to lofty positions, and you will have a job interview that's a little more passive-aggressive than this. Hi. It'll be like tough-ass questions and smile.
Fake nice.
Yeah, fake nights. All right, do you want to get blocked?
Fake nice is the worst.
You ready?
Yeah, I guess. You ready?
Yeah.
Anybody, while we're getting blocked, you guys want to say anything about how Ryan did?
He asked a question.
It was his first time.
He was so
That's
nervous.
what it shows.
He was so nervous.
He was nervous to the point where he definitely had thoughts where he didn't say just because he
The voting thing was murder. You guys took him out, you shot him, and then you beat his body for like another 20 minutes.
Okay, stop flattering me. Stop flattering me. All right. Emily Block,
Hello.
Welcome back.
who wants to go first?
Hold on. Got a back thing.
All right, so Neil, you want to go? Or Wes?
Yeah, I'll go. Wes, I defer to Wes first, so.
Okay.
Wes.
Hey, Emily, a lot of the staff didn't like your decision behind UP6.
With the cover change.
Yes.
I've learned in my time as editor that you're never going to make everybody happy, but you have to think about the final product. And it's not like it was a secret under wraps thing. The design team knew about it, the copy editors knew about it. Everyone that needed to know about that story knew about it. It wasn't a sure thing. If stories were going to follow through, we had it as an evergreen. And if stories were beautiful, then we were going to hold it for UP7. Copy editors came to me that day and told me wildlife was weak. And they told me that they couldn't get through it. All of the team told me that.
You obviously rehearsed this really well. Who's they?
Carrie, with a C, copy desk chief, Carrie with a K, and Raphael.
Is
All
that
told
true?
me that they could not get through copy.
Wildlife was a piece of crap.
It was a mess.
Okay, just one verification. Thank you very much.
So from there, I said, cool, now we go to plan B, which I had already talked to Ivan about, and which copy editors had already gone through. So we subbed it in. And
And you believe that was the strongest story that should have been covered that week?
the decision to make it the cover was because it was between wildlife, which now wasn't a story in the issue anymore, so obviously that couldn't be covered, surfing, which was a photo of someone falling down, or smoking. So I talked to my creative director, Ivan, and he ultimately made the choice to me that, yeah, that was the right choice. I stand by
Wait,
it.
let's keep on these guys. Go ahead.
Question in my court, okay. Emily,
Yes.
there's a charge in the comments here that nothing new or profound has been created under block. So respond to that. Is that true?
I think new things have happened, but not enough, and I want to do more. A lot of it boils down to my time management, which I could have done better, and I do
Explain
want to
that a
fix.
little bit. What do you mean by that?
When you come into editorship, you expect to do all this stuff that you talked about, and then the extra stuff comes into place.
Tell him,
The-
can you give us
The
specifics?
contracts, making sure we had a printer, making sure we had advertising to pay for the printer, making sure that
Okay, can
we
you-
were funded,
You have two
et cetera.
people here who have no idea what the hell you're talking about. In 30 seconds or less, can you explain that?
We went from magazine to newsprint this semester because our advertising company told us that we could not afford to continue printing magazine and they would not support it. So we needed to switch to newsprint. So we needed to find a printer, we needed to find advertisers that supported us. So 2 new contracts had to be figured out right as I came into editorship.
And there were other things that happened, you said?
Yes, the engineering department stole 1,000 of our issues a day after they hit bins. So after trying to go about it formally and talk to the dean of engineering and talk to the engineering professors and them not listening, I had to write a column about it. From there, they took a meeting with us and agreed to reimburse
How many
us.
hours did that actually consume, both of those things?
Both, like the engineering alone,
You
or
answered
everything?
Neil that you didn't do a lot of things because you were distracted with
Contracts took at
emergencies.
least 2 weeks straight. And then the engineering thing took 3 days, back to back to back, of going back and forth.
Okay, ask and answer.
Okay, so now, should you win again, what's new? Like they said that there's not enough new stuff going on.
Or profound.
Okay, as for profound things, we did do a lot of things that aren't getting recognized. Because we switched over to newsprint, we developed a whole new house style to go with that newsprint.
Readers care about that?
No, but
Can you
they'll
answer his
care if
que-
it looks broken.
Can you answer his question in terms of what the readers see and go, wow?
We had a breaking news microsite when all the Yik Yak escapades happened. We had a whole microsite with different stories about it that all went up in one package that same week, and I'm really proud of that site.
Okay, next.
We did more multimedia, but not enough. We implemented timelines into some of our news stories, videos into some of our sports and news stories. I want
Did
to
you
do
do that
more
or
of
did
it.
Ryan do that?
Ryan did it in sports, Greg did it in news, Patrick did it in news as well.
Anything else you want to tell Neil on the answer to this question before we move on?
As far as profound things, we doubled our print content. We went from 12 pages of editorial to almost 24.
And you did. It's a lot meatier. There's no question about that. But partly, part of the reason for that is you just
Because
had
we
all
got
that
to.
lacking all that
But
white
if we
space
really
there.
Oh,
needed
listen
to,
to
we could
Neil.
have cut pages.
Neil, please, don't interrupt the
Oh,
guy
I'm
that's
sorry.
voting for you or against you.
Wow, did you know what you do? Or against, okay.
It's all
I
right.
apologize.
That's okay, no, but you did that out of necessity because you had all that white space to fill. So would you,
Correct.
would that have happened if you hadn't had all those missing ads?
Correct, but if we had to, we could have cut down on pages, and I didn't want to do that.
That's right, okay. Understood. That's
Which
fair.
John Black told us that we could do.
Could you,
our
but
printers.
you chose not to, you chose to have the staff write more,
Correct.
put more words in, go longer, more numerous in stories.
Yes.
Okay. That's satisfied you.
Wes?
Wes.
Everyone?
I'm good.
What happened to the story ideas that you came up with from the last editor selection?
One of them is an evergreen right now, but I want to expand on it. Part of my vision for next semester, to make it better than this semester,
Before you tell her vision, just answer the question.
The rest of them. So one's in holding.
one is an evergreen, one hasn't started yet, but is going to. We're starting to break down the timeline, the homeless one. And tobacco happened, so.
That's that story that has holes in it, everyone says?
Now, Ryan mentioned doing a story on being homeless. Is that distinct from his?
The homeless story is where I don't know.
5
what
days
it
living
is.
out, living out.
That's what Ryan said.
Well, I thought his was just not so much homeless, but more just free things that you can get.
Ah, okay,
This
okay.
is more about really
Whose
being
idea, so
homeless.
whose idea really was it?
I mean, it started with me last semester.
Whatever.
Well, they're two different ideas.
I don't care.
What
Do you have 3 stories for next semester?
Yes, I have a few actually. One
Can
that
you do it
I'm
without looking
working.
at a piece of paper?
Well, I have extras, but yes, sexual assault.
What about it?
I'm doing a story on sexual assault because the Query Act came out this year and it showed us that rapes on campus tripled. It went from 2 to 6 happening on housing in the dorms.
Is that a story we've already done? Didn't Dylan do
You did the
this?
Clear Act.
But this is for 2014. It tripled.
Okay, a new idea then. Something new.
That's good, it's a good story.
Okay.
Good story.
Okay. I want to do something on body image. The NCAA released a report saying that eating disorders are more common in girls than in guys, and that elite athletes are more likely to have them than their other classmates. So I want to talk to the different female sports teams and the male sports teams and get anonymous surveys from each of them talking about how they feel about their body, versus how they're portrayed in the media.
Ask and answer, next one.
Yes. I did a story on tobacco-free university, but I want to do a follow-up on the tobacco
Give us
ambassador.
it's not a follow-up.
Not a follow-up.
But it's different. Tobacco
Then,
ambassadors,
you know what, humor us and make it real different.
Greg and I are working on a story on A&S fees. A&S fees, it used to be that 27% would go to, other way around. 3% would go to paying full-time salaries, and the rest would go to events and funding and that kind of stuff. And now 27% is going to paying full-time salaries. So we want to follow the money, see what happened, and see who it's affecting. Talk to the clubs that are losing out and putting on lesser programs because of that.
Okay. Next question.
Well, so about this tobacco story.
Yes.
How would you grade this tobacco story?
B+.
What's wrong? What
I
does
saw the criticism that the staff gave it, but the problem with that is
tell me what the criticism is.
the criticism is that it doesn't talk about what happens, like talking to a person who got written up. The problem is no one's gotten written up for it yet because that hasn't been implemented yet. In my story, I talk about how that's going to be implemented this year.
Right.
So
Do you think it was clear enough in that story that nobody's been written up yet?
I thought it was, but I could be wrong.
Because that's the question I have when I read it.
Okay. Understood.
So who edited your story?
Greg edited it.
Who voted on it?
Who
Is that an
voted on
inside
it?
joke?
Uh,
Neil, you have another question?
I did. What was your biggest mistake this semester?
Time
Tell me.
management.
What the hell does that mean?
Time, yeah.
I wanted to focus more on our website, and it really didn't happen as much as I wanted it to.
Okay, because you
'Cause I
didn't
got
want to spend as much
distracted
time
by-
here, or you couldn't spend as
No,
much time here?
because I got bogged down in worrying about contracts and then worrying about putting out our paper, which doubled in content. So the website didn't get everything.
Okay, some of the contract stuff was really in the advisor's court. So you didn't have to do as much legwork. I did a lot of the meeting legwork. So
Okay.
where specifically was there a lot of time being sucked away from the contracts thing?
Probably with worrying about filling up 24 pages every week, which I know seems petty, but
Because of the ads, missing ads.
But everything in print goes online, correct?
yes.
Can we be more concrete about mistake? What was a bad, truly horrible decision that you made, a horrific decision that you really and truly regret, or in hindsight decided I would have done this?
You know, I stand by a lot of the choices I made, but I think I could have communicated them better.
Just answer the question.
A lot of drama happened with the Best Of website. I still stand by the choice of me.
Well, what's the one you
Okay.
don't stand by? What's one you admit
Right,
that
that's
you
the
were
question.
wrong? You screwed up.
Tell you what, even if at this point, any decision you made, I don't care how big or small, that you regret. Tell us a regret. Every leader has a regret.
She's perfect.
I'm
Guess
not
so.
perfect. It's communication, but I'm trying to think of like a specific incident.
Well, I don't care about communication, but what's the regret of the paper? Like that issue didn't come out so well, or that story shouldn't have gone to print yet, or
Sorry, just a reminder that these guys care little about the troubles in this room and
Understood.
everything about online and in print.
Our weakest issue was homecoming. The homecoming
Is that a
issue,
regret, I hear?
Why?
Yes.
Why?
we gave it to a new writer.
We always give it to a new writer.
Yes.
What's your regret?
It sucked.
But why?
well, whose fault is that?
Everyone's, including my own. It
What'd you do wrong that you would change?
probably walked through the editing more myself. It was a new writer who was edited by pretty seasoned editors, but it was such a new writer that I think it just overwhelmed him, and they ended up having to pick up a whole lot of the slack, pretty much all of the slack. And I should have been there to pick up some stories as well. And I should have.
Pretty boring regret. All right.
Sorry.
Next
We
question.
don't have any issues, so hey, okay, I'm gonna read the staff note here and then I'll let you respond.
Okay.
A leader can inspire great things to happen. Look at Martin Luther King Jr. He inspired many people and a lot of good came out of it. Block hasn't motivated or inspired any of the staff members, making this semester's work mediocre. So I'm asking you, how would you, is that valid, and then how would you respond?
I don't think that's valid because I think that it's talking about a leader inspiring others.
Sure.
I've talked to a lot of our staff talking about wanting to do more multimedia wise, and even though it wasn't fantastic and we could do more, Ryan Lynch went out and did video, Patrick did timelines in his stories, Greg went out and did video, and then when Yik Yak happened and the breaking news happened that night, we finished the story, Patrick and I did the story that night, and then I said, let's join together and do this microsite this week.
He's
So we
asking you a
did.
question about motivation, and you're telling us what you did. Plus, you're citing hard work from your opponent, which is always a weird thing to do.
Yeah, I'm asking, like, do you think you motivated the staff?
I
Like, if whoever wrote the staff report is wrong, why?
I think I put out good copy and I try and show others that they can do the same. With the tobacco story, it went in last minute and it was done. And copy editors were happy because they didn't have to worry about this big story that got bogged down. And then I worked with Andrew and
how
I
come-
said, this is how we can make this
How
story
come
better.
if you did that, if you're going to use that as an answer to Wes's question
Yes.
about how you motivate, then how come some of the staff hated it so much? I mean, why do
Because
they
they don't
think?
know the full story,
Well, but
copy
that's your
editors
job
and
to tell
design
them,
know
isn't it?
I guess.
So is that a regret I hear?
We could
Good, we
communicate
came to
that.
something.
In Andrew's candidate, answers or whatever, he
Yes.
says that you shot down a lot of ideas, that you weren't very receptive to new ideas. How do you respond to that? Did you read his?
I read his thing. I don't really think that's true. I think I have been pretty receptive to ideas. Perhaps I could have been more receptive, but a lot of the stuff he cites, didn't really even get proposed to me. So I'm not a mind reader. I'm just a human.
Other questions from the group?
Emily, what happened to Beats? Beats are going to be implemented tomorrow.
Beats fall through sometimes
Why?
because people don't want to write about the same thing forever. They want to rotate. They want to vary, and I respect that. And if I don't want them to be stuck on one thing, when we went to CMA, one thing I learned about covering student government was one person shouldn't always have to do it. If you could rotate through a few people, then everyone can benefit from it, and one person doesn't have to get bogged down by it. And I think that deserves a chance.
Jason, were
So
you bogged down
did
by
you-
student government?
Absolutely not.
I know you weren't.
Just before we get to Sonia, related question. When you covered student government, as a student government reporter, how much money did you win from the awards just for covering student government?
$5,500.
It's a lucrative thing.
Can I add no, please go ahead.
Okay, so the beats are gonna happen tomorrow. So what did you try? What happened? Did you assign beats and then everybody revolted? What happened?
Not really. It fell through. And that's
No,
my
it
fault.
fell.
That sounds like mistakes were made. Tell her what happened.
Who made
We
the
have-
Is that a
first
regret?
active verb?
Sure.
Boy, we're really
We
wrapping
have
up.
sections. We have sections. We have news. We have features. We have science. We have sports. And then things fell under that, but no specific beats were developed. We talked
Why?
about it. It just
So you had
You
no
see, hold
specific
on,
beat
let's
right now?
stop here, because the sentence, no specific beats were developed, it's a passive sentence with nobody doing any action. So, did you assign beats? Did you ask one of your editors to assign beats?
We talked about
That means no.
possibilities, but no, it didn't happen.
So you didn't even try it. Sounds like.
No, you didn't even, yeah.
Or do you think they have value? Maybe you don't, because Andrew didn't think Beats had any value.
But you said before
But
when
they
you were
take
running.
you 24 hours earlier, she was,
So why didn't you try?
I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, that's kind of suck ass.
Are you going to try next time, or you're done with beats?
I'd like to talk to my staff about it and see if they want to, and if they do, then
The
I'll.
staff that mostly voted against you?
Yeah.
How's that
I mean,
gonna
not
go?
mostly.
Yeah, it was 8 to 6 to 1.
Okay.
That's most.
Okay.
I'm terrible at math. That's most.
Why do you think the staff voted against you?
No one wants to be friends with the boss. You know what I mean? Like, people are gonna, how do I put it? I can't make everybody happy. I'm human, and I think it's just a matter of Ryan Lynch is really eager, and I think he has a ton of potential, but he hasn't had to be everyone's boss yet.
okay, so what do you think you can do better than Ryan?
Lead the staff. I think that I have an advantage because I've been here a semester, and I know how to make it better. And nothing went horribly wrong. That sounds terrible.
It
but
does sound.
That's a good campaign slogan.
nothing went
Nothing
not bad. It
went
I
wasn't
think
that
that's Jeb
like bushes.
That's a button.
We did a lot of stuff right, and we're getting there. I know how to make it better now. So
Question, Linda.
yes.
Another staff vote implies that you followed Wes's trend of keeping the UP in the same place. So, if you,
Wait, that's Bob.
yeah, no, that's a separate vote.
That's your legacy, Wes.
I said that.
Okay, that's enough. So if you do win, what is new? What are your new ideas?
My biggest vision is that, and I've talked to the staff about it already, is that with every general issue, I want a special section. So it's gonna have one big cover story as well as supplemental stories that feed into it, and one interactive element that
How's
goes
that-
online as well.
When you answer these questions from here on out,
Yeah.
you guys are both making the same weird mistake, which is we're going to do more with less. If you couldn't do stuff this semester, how is assigning a new special section to the same people?
Because we can do this.
No, I don't think she was talking. I don't think she was talking like. I thought she meant like every issue, different special section on something.
Stick up for her.
No, I think that I was just clear.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. What is,
What?
Can you repeat the question?
I lost it.
I lost it too.
you are answering all the questions with we're going to do more with the existing staff, but you're admitting in your answers you didn't do more with the staff you already had. So when you answer their questions from now on, give us some practical, concrete way you're going to get to that vision.
The staff we already have is great.
Is it? They don't even like you.
That's fine. I think they're good though. They know how to write. It's just a matter of working on
All right, this is a really good related question. Rate the staff. Give it a grade. You gave an issue a grade. You gave your story a grade. Give the staff a grade.
B.
Do you think, if you're a mind reader, do you think I would give it a higher or lower grade?
Lower.
Why? Did you read the staff votes?
Yeah.
What
Well,
did
I
you?
skimmed them. I didn't
Really?
get through all of them.
Okay. What did you think of those staff votes?
I think they want an editor who they can manipulate.
If
each other.
Jason and
So they
Sonia,
want an editor they can manipulate.
so do you think Jason and Sonia think those staff votes are mature and on point? There's one staff vote.
Some of them.
I wish I could tell you who it was. One staff vote actually watched. I know who the person is and think it's awesome. One person actually watched your
Mhm.
last presentation and took notes. Did journalism, more journalism than I've seen in the UP sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. That's,
That was awesome.
that's why I say B, because the potential's there. It's just they get complacent at times. We all do.
Well,
But
how do you fix that?
This is your staff.
because with the special sections, I would give them, instead of writing about little listicles that they don't care about, they would get one big meaty story that they get to brag
You're going to
about.
fix the staff problems, the communication problems. That's how you're going to do it. Let me ask you, this is really important. Let me ask you this question. Among the staff, how are your editors? Rate your editing team.
Individually or like
No, as a
whole?
group. The editors in this
plus.
paper. Okay. I get the sense, based on the staff votes and knowing who voted, that you don't get along with some of the editors. Is that a fair statement?
Ish. I think work needs to be at work and relationships need to be somewhere
Okay,
else.
well, I'm just
but-
going to address this in staff comments because I don't think you're
Okay.
accurate here. You guys go ahead. Or do you want to take a break and have the staff ask some questions? We come back to you guys.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Emily,
Yes.
Evergreens, going back to that issue, so that tank's been empty for quite a while. You were really gung-ho about that in the beginning, I recall, and did try to put some in. Because there are some stories that go in that are half-cooked, so, and they really should not have gone in at all. And, but they still get in. They need to sit longer, so, but you have no fallback. So why would you let that happen? Why not? That's not a hard thing to fix.
I think
So-
it's something we worked on fixing. Granted, it was late in the game, but that's what we did with UP6. I had tobacco stoves, and we slid it when something wasn't meeting potential, and then it did the next week.
How many do you have now?
I have one of my own.
Done.
Yes.
Ready to run.
Ready to run.
So one of your own.
What is
Yes.
it?
And this is an evergreen?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
It's one of the ones that I pitched last semester. It's Peter Almirado, who's a fraternity founder, but he's also virgin and proud.
Okay, follow-up question. You could generate more evergreens if you probably recruited more people. people on that bench and have a deeper bench here. You have some good people, no question about that. Why, I don't think I've seen any real effort to do recruitment here, to expand the pie of UP talent. How come?
I would argue with that because we
Why?
had 10 new people come at least just this semester.
But did you recruit them or did they just wander in the door?
Some of them came from house ed, some of them came from open
So when I
house.
say recruit, I mean a proactive, concerted, focused attempt to tell the universe outside of this UN 214 that UP wants more hands on deck.
Did you go to classes?
At the beginning of the semester, yes.
Ryan Lynch ran and said that you did not do a very good job of that. Agree or disagree?
He wasn't there, how would he know?
He mentioned tabling that.
He said you didn't visit a lot of classes.
No, we did, that fell through. I'll take some of the blame for that.
Well, it's not the advisor's
your
fault.
But
What about, Ryan also said tabling dropped off after a few weeks. It hasn't been done in most of the semester. Is that true or false?
That's false. We do it most of the semester. It dropped off this week because there's a breaking
Okay,
news
good.
story.
Well, when we get it all together, we can ask. All right, more questions?
I have a question from Dory's End. Have you contacted this semester any former UP alum or staff members
Yes.
or anything?
I've spoken to Gideon Grudo, Dylan Boucher, Lulu Ramadan, Regina Casa.
For what reasons?
For Gideon, I talked to him at the beginning of the semester initially because of worrying about newsprint and how to fall into that again. I spoke to Dylan Boucher about more multimedia advice, same with Lulu Ramadan, and both of them have agreed to come in to do training this coming semester because I know I fell off with
How
that.
come we didn't have them now, this semester?
I mean, they could come
Why didn't
next
they?
Friday because I fell off on that. It's my fault.
Staff questions? Next.
Gideon has a question.
Oh, get in. Go ahead. Alumni first. Go ahead.
Describe the UP at the end of next semester if you're EIC. That's his question.
Award winning, sexy, huge, special sections in every general issue that every editor can use as a clip to get a future job.
Yeah. All right. Max.
If you look back to the semester prior to this one, smoking and guns were both on the cover. If you look at this semester, smoking and guns are both on the cover. How do you feel about that?
That's actually a really valid point that I never thought of. I think the stories change and people, half of our story ideas come from looking at former UP issues to see what they did and how we can spin it now. And I think that we need to do that so we can learn from people that are doing the jobs that we want now. So if those issues are still relevant to new people, a freshman this year isn't going to read a story from a year ago.
Max and one of the candidates pointed out that your smoking story sounded a lot like Max's story. What percentage of new information do you think was in your smoking story? And what percentage of new information do you think was in the gun story?
I think that they're very different stories.
What percentage?
I really don't know. I didn't look at Max's
Okay,
that much, to
then
be
that's
honest.
fine.
It's been
Just-
a while.
No big deal.
Me being a new person, I just want to know what reason do I have to go to you over Mr. Franklin?
Because I have professional experience. I've done this for a semester. I know what to make better, and I think I know how to do it.
It's a good question from a new person, I gotta say. Well, I think I did. Anybody else? Oh, good. Go ahead.
So you talked about the engineering incident, and actually I'm a part of that class. And I know you said that you felt like the professors weren't hearing you, but being a part of the class for 2 weeks straight, our professor told us over and over again not to take any of the publications off of the breezeway because we would be fined for that. And the students in the class did that anyway. What do you plan on doing? Because how do you plan on implementing on stopping that? Because you can't really. I mean, the professor did tell and say, hey, you can't use a newspaper, but people did it anyways. What would you say you would do to stop kind of that?
Well, first I appreciate you speaking up about that, but what we did, it already happened, was when we had that meeting with the Dean of Engineering, besides reimbursing us for the issues that were taken, he also agreed that this project doesn't use newspaper anymore. They're going to use a supplied material. So we're going to follow up with that, but they've already.
Most creative thing I've heard all day. It came from an engineering professor. Other questions? Mo.
What would you do for web?
I've already talked to Ryan Lynch, and I want to make him my multimedia editor instead of sports editor. number one, I think it would actually help groom him up to more of a leadership position. But number two, I think it would help alleviate the staff because someone would be just in charge of web, and we would be able to implement more multimedia pieces. An example of that is with my ANS fee story. We talked about, I've already talked to Ivan and a few people about it, but we would have like a quiz talking about what do your ANS fees cover and what don't they cover. Just having more elements with each story. And I think the special sections will help enforce that because you're gonna have to think about different pieces to a story as well as
All right,
a web
ask and
element.
answer.
Could I have a follow-up?
You may, sir.
From last semester, you wrote. I asked the same question. You wrote, "I want a web news editor. By doing that, I'm going to have more web-focused content."
It didn't happen.
How would I believe you now if you didn't do it last
Because
time?
I already have a person lined up for the job. It's done. He already agreed to it and talked about it.
Who is it?
It's Ryan Lynch.
Last time you did not have a person in mind?
I just said that.
I
But
thought this was
I thought it was a
multimedia.
social
That's
media.
multimedia, not social media.
Oh, he thinks he told us
You
social.
said social.
I just said
He's
multimedia.
But he says social.
Oh.
he said
There seems to be a misunderstanding. He says
Okay,
social.
well
The
then I'll
communication.
clarify with him, but I told him.
Last to follow up to get to the point of Mo's question. Last time you said that, you did not have a person in mind?
Correct.
Okay.
I just have a general question based on this gigantic list of shit that you didn't do when you said you were gonna do it. Like, why would you even say all of these things that you have the ability to do? And you came from a position where you could have done some of this as a managing editor, and you didn't do any of it then. And now you're an editor-in-chief, and you still have a giant list of things that you didn't do.
But I also have a giant list of things that I did do. I think I
Right.
got overzealous, and I'm not
Right, but
saying
you're
that
not-
it's okay.
But just to be clear, answer his question without saying, again, answer his question and not give him another answer. So answer his question.
I got overzealous.
Why are you gonna do the? Why do we think that you're gonna do something now?
Because I've already made moves. Understood. Thanks. But
Convince
some
them.
of the, but
My
some
vote
of those
doesn't
things
matter
are
anymore.
really like small, like gift cards. I don't need to incentivize my staff. I said I did, and I'm
Why
over
say
it.
shit that
Why
doesn't
say
matter?
Because I
Are
wasn't
you
the
a
editor
politician
yet.
or
I
are
didn't
you
get
a
it.
journalist?
Now I've been in the chair, like I understand it, and I can bet you that other people running that haven't done it yet are probably going to say things that they might not deliver on, not because they fall apart, but because they aren't in that position yet.
So you're saying some of those ideas are just bad ideas?
Yeah.
All right.
So you're saying that
Patrick?
you're saying
Yeah,
so
Regret number.
so you're saying one person, Ryan Lynch, well yeah, he writes sports and he has done some multimedia things, but how is he the saving grace for web?
I'm not calling him the saving grace.
Well that's what it seems like what you're saying. That's like you're saying that I'm gonna make web amazing by having Ryan Lynch.
Well, I'm going to add more focus to it. That way,
What's that mean?
Yeah.
Give us a concrete example of what that means.
when we
More
have our
focus
editors
means?
meetings, we're going to talk about stories, and he's going to talk about how can we do this on web. Funky.
Shouldn't
Hold
all
on.
your
We
editors
add
be
to
doing
it.
that?
Why do
Shouldn't all your editors be doing that?
I've asked.
You're one of those editors. Do you really want to ask that question?
I have to doing that.
Sometimes, but I think that we get an extra push by having someone to focus just on that.
All right. Emily, did you have a question? You were saying something. All right, Mo, it's a Mo show. Go ahead.
Why haven't you done that now?
We've started to.
The social media part?
The multimedia part,
Or multi.
we've started to.
Shouldn't there be someone in the multimedia editing position who is a multimedia person? Like who can look at
Yeah, who's
something,
technical? I
who can
mean,
look at this and
does
be
he
like,
know?
this would make the coolest video.
Does he
chart
know
graph
what
in the
video
world.
bitrate it is? I mean, how big he should have it and all
This
that
is more
stuff.
for the concept. We can
But
worry
that's
about
multimedia.
logistics with
Oh,
our
hold
web
on.
team.
You guys are asking big questions here. Video bit rates is something an editor, you find someone that knows that. We're talking
that's
about
not
we're talking about motivating people. Anybody, Richard, do you have a question? Let's speak really loudly.
Yeah, do you think the current environment here in the newsrooms has been productive, and if not, what would you do to change the environment?
It depends on the day with us. Sometimes the staff's really motivated. When the Yik Yak thing happened, we said all hands on deck, and Carrie was here for a week, and she was already finding parts of that story. I think it's just a matter of keeping the energy up, and it's not always easy.
So keeping the energy up, that's your answer to this question.
No, but it's about inspiring people with good
And
work
inspiring people
and
with good work.
continuing.
Okay, do you have any concrete
keep the
answers to
momentum
this
up.
question?
if we have really awesome stories that are going
Awesome
in
stories.
special
Okay,
sections,
are there
then other people are gonna wanna produce those stories and come in and do it as well.
Other questions from the panel? Can you do me a favor? Can you get the other two candidates and bring them in here?
Yes.
And we will wrap this up pretty quickly. All right, we're gonna get all three candidates together. We're gonna have one last round of questions. Will not take very long. Then before these guys articulate what they're gonna vote for or against, you guys have an opportunity to persuade them by saying something. Do you have any observations so far you want to share? Sure.
Once again, I don't even know.
You don't have to know.
You don't have to know.
It seems she's really extremely confident in her own abilities, and it almost seems she's a little bit too confident. She didn't get, except that one time when she said, "I don't know a single wrong answer. Everything she had done was correct. There was no mistakes. Everything was done correctly because she was so confident in her abilities, and that sometimes in a leadership position, she may not be able to see her flaws or flaws in other things because of that confidence, I think."
You know, you're brand new. Here's $1. You should stick around. Maybe someday you'll be sitting in this chair.
You should actually take pretty good pictures too.
Here, please, sit. All three of you.
Just sit. She's raising her hand.
Oh, Sabrina, you want to ask a question or make a
No,
comment?
can I ask a question right when they're saying what their votes are? Can I ask a question before he answers?
Do you want to do that now or you want to do it after this?
After this.
Okay, these three people are here. We want to start. Do we have any last lingering questions for all three of them? This, by the way, when you ask a question, it should apply to all three of them. So, for instance, like here's an example. Ryan, you say you're going to be social media editor next semester. She says it's not social media.
Multi.
Who's right?
It's MB.
Okay, second question. These are the way you ask these sort of
Big
questions.
difference. Big difference.
You're going to be the multimedia editor, and she is saying that you are going to solve all the multimedia problems. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
The third question. She said that, what was the thing that, now I'm losing it. What did you say that he,
The news,
Give me more.
Yeah.
He's nice.
Give me more.
oh yeah, you've written most of the stories this semester. You said that, okay, go ahead, I'm going to have to come back.
You lost me.
I lost myself. Go ahead, you guys have a question.
I have a question from social media, and this is kind of awkward for where I'm sitting right now, but WTF is 270 mag, and how are you going to crush it for all the candidates? From Gideon Grudo.
A separate group of the UP has started their own publication.
Damn.
This is
If he thinks it's something that needs to be crushed, I'm kind of flattered. Yeah. Thank you.
270, they came up with that because of a lack of acceptance of their ideas, which was they wanted to write fashion and other types of things.
You mean I have to crush it? Oh, I can't answer.
Right,
Oh my god. No. So close, it's not him.
Anybody else?
Would you incorporate 270? I mean, it seems like you that's where some people are getting pissed off. I mean, would that be something you would do, or is that a no?
It's not really a decision we can make. It's up to them.
No, if you.
How is that not a
No,
decision?
if you win,
You're the EIC.
Yeah, but
Okay,
this is not
weird.
a university press thing. This is their own website thing. If they want to do something together, then yeah, I think it would be a great idea because all it was is stuff that they weren't allowed to write in here that they wanted to write.
Word allowed. I think that's a little excessive.
Turn around.
It's just different.
All right, let's not talk about this. Is not.
It's not relevant to the university.
I remember my dumbass question. Tabling. She said she was doing tabling. You said that tabling wasn't done. Which is it? You guys talk amongst yourselves.
I mean, we tabled. I mean,
I didn't-
people in
I
this
didn't
room were
see it.
there.
I didn't see it towards the second half. I didn't see it.
We offered it weekly. It was a matter of who could come. Sometimes you would class, sometimes I had class. I'll admit, but people in this room have tabled. Yeah.
I've tabled the past month, like every single week, so it has happened.
Okay, good. I just want to clarify that point. Other questions? Go ahead, guys.
I unfortunately heard this terrible news that a freshman who's been here from the beginning of this semester till now has no idea what the university press is. Who walks around campus all the time? How do you feel about that? What would you do about that?
I think it's more about reaching out to other people. Like
Reaching out to other people. How, please?
Like saying we're like. First of all, by cleaning up our bins, we could definitely attract more attention to it. They're rust buckets.
Okay, cleaning up the bins, that's good.
Rust buckets. Attracting more people by saying that we'd be accepting more than just hardcore journalism, like the creative fiction or whatever it may be.
Oh, that's good.
By opening up what we want in that newspaper, it would definitely attract other people and just raise our audience and awareness.
What Max is asking is how you reach that kid though. Like how do you get in front of his face?
I mean,
Seems like ways.
yeah.
Ryan, do you have any ideas? Block?
People, oh, go ahead.
Social media is obviously answered that question. A lot of our students use social media, getting that word out there, reaching out to student groups, recruiting, which is something we haven't always done, taking an active stance on. Kind of even getting in the room, just going through classes, saying, you know, hey, this is our site, this is what we do, this is our paper. Even if we don't get them into our newsroom as a writer, it gets a name out there. It kind of swirls around, you know.
All right, ask and answer. Block.
Well, two things I lost my train of thought.
And,
No, I'm coming. Two things that we can do is number one, recruit people outside of the J school or the not even real J school, of our J program. Because right now the only recruiting we've done class to class is inside of the journalism classes. I think we need to do it in random majors because we have physics majors here and engineering majors, and you don't have to be.
Good
a
idea.
journalism
Ask and
major
answer.
here. Okay, and then another thing I was thinking is people want their faces in the paper if they're going to read the paper. And one way to improve that is with more reviews. I've already talked to Carrie Giard, Carissa, about doing a music section and expanding that, and she wants to do it, and we've already started recruiting a team. So more reviews means more students featured, which means more readers.
What's your name?
John.
And then,
Celeste.
okay, John and Celeste, go ahead.
I've been to the websites before and I've been to other schools' websites. Not to say there's anything wrong with it, but I feel like the website could look nicer, and I've seen the 270 website, it looks beautiful. What could we do to make the layout of our website more appealing to students?
I mean, we just have to revamp it. The option has been there, and it was suggested already, but it was turned down over the semester. Mo has volunteered to teach Rich to become the next web editor, and
All right, so
they
hold
will
on.
work
That's
together.
why we're asking this question together. So, current editor in chief, did you turn down Mo training Rich? Why?
I did not
No,
turn
not
down
turn down
Training
that.
Rich.
She turned down the idea of re-entering.
No, I turned down the idea of paying money to buy a new theme that would change our carousel a little bit because I wanted to focus on content before we focused on
I think the
revamping
difference
the
between the UP site and 270 site is very big. It's not even the carousel.
website. Okay.
That's just a sexy website.
I think the themes that we looked at wasn't even like changing the carousel.
Okay,
it was
let's
a whole new theme.
keep this at a high level. So, Celeste.
So I was walking by the Culture and Society building the other day and saw a guy actually reading the newspaper, checking his watch, putting the newspaper back in the bin, and then walking the class. So that means that people are probably reading their newspapers, but they aren't taking them with them, which means either the stories aren't compelling enough or they're just mediocre enough that people are reading them and then putting them back.
I will tell you that most newspapers that happens to. So, putting a newspaper back is actually better environmentally correct than leaving it out. But
Yes, it didn't trash it, but
if they're reading the newspaper, people read newspapers for minutes at a time.
okay.
But so I understand your observation. Is there a question you want to ask these
No,
guys?
that was more of an observation.
It's a relevant one, but just so you know that that's actually in our business that's considered a successful read.
Somebody picked it up.
Patrick.
So they're saying that we would revamp the website because I mean obviously that seems to be an underlying problem. How? How do we revamp that website?
I've talked with Mo, talked about adding a sports sticker at the top, breaking news sticker, running across the side, change up the style a little bit, open things up.
Okay, but how are you doing that? Are you using a sample or what are you doing to accomplish that?
I mean, like, we just have to just look over it and just have general ideas. Like,
No,
hey,
we
does this look better?
we're not just looking things over. This is getting really boring.
What needs to change is what
Yeah.
he's asking.
I mean, right now the website's very static looking. I mean, like, if you look at 270,
So what are you gonna do
making
to
that
it?
comparison?
Okay, let's just say this
I
about
want to get rid of the carousel.
Okay.
I want to get rid of the carousel.
That's your big
I've
plan.
already talked to Richard about ideas for the website.
Can we say this? These guys haven't seen 270. That is a fashion website. That is not a news website. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we talking about here?
That's no. I'm asking how. Like that's I'm
Do
trying
we
to ask.
want to make
Examples
the
of
UP
Yes, like a
online
concrete
adoption
example
website?
of like a news site that you would use.
And that's that.
Well, I just said that. So does that count?
What did you say?
I said I want to get rid of the carousel, and I've already talked to Richard about other ideas for a web, about revamping it and talking about it together.
Richard, is that true?
Yeah.
I
don't know how much input I'm supposed to have in this.
How much do you want?
Okay,
You're just the truth meter, yes or no?
Okay, yeah. There's great improvements need to be made. This stuff about 270 looking beautiful and our University Press website not looking that good is all to do with the WordPress theme that it's provided, or you can install different things.
All right, so it's an easy fix. In other words, that's
I've
what
also
it is.
started
To change that basic thing, but doing
Okay, ask and answer. Thank you, Richard. You have a question?
I actually think that the University Press website, I don't think it's bad. I like the website. I just thought that like when I clicked on a bunch of the tabs, all the articles and the stuff that I read was all from 2014. Like I didn't really see anything new.
Right, we have a
Some
big
of the
problem.
blogs and stuff is still there. Yeah.
All right.
I've already talked to other.
I don't care.
Okay, but
All
I
right.
talked to like Dylan Boucher and talked about industry standards.
Great. You talk. We're talking about results. Is this a really legitimate question?
I've got two really legitimate
Pick one.
Pick one.
Yes, sir. Unless you guys want to spend another hour here. Why don't you show your question to Mo and you guys pick one together?
I can't even read his thing.
Are there any other comments from anybody here? All right, so here's what we're going to do.
Wait, he has one.
Go ahead.
How do you feel inside when you walk past one of our news bins? Ryan Lynch.
Okay. I want to fix them. It's a simple fix. Just get some plexiglass, get some paint.
Well, if anybody thinks it's good, then really?
Like I want to tackle it and beat it with a baseball bat.
Well, then you should.
Right,
But it's looked like that
the
for under
question-
3 IC.
The question isn't gonna, how do you feel about it? It's not gonna elicit
Okay,
any
scratch
what
it.
are you gonna do
What does
here?
the newsroom look like in 6 months from now? Next mock, when these lovely people are sitting
We
here.
don't. Why do we care what
Wait,
the
what
newsroom
about
looks
the
like?
news, though?
No, didn't ask that whole thing. Realistically,
Keep the
he
newspaper.
asked you.
Oh, I'm
Didn't
sorry.
ask
Okay.
them. I didn't expect his question to come. I thought it would be an all three people question. But realistically, not like page-long lists of shit that didn't happen. Like, what's actually going to look like?
We're gonna have a much more different amount of people in here. We're gonna have people from doing different things, writing different things, interested in different things, attracting different kinds of audiences. We're gonna have a much more varied amount of people because, like I said, I want to attract different people. I want to attract people who want to write editorial.
Okay, I'm interrupting. That's a bullshit answer. Sorry. I'm going to get more different people in here. It's going to be very different.
Well, okay,
Diverse.
and back to our point is that if you have 2 people here, or 100 different people here, I don't care. I want to know what is on this is better. Like, how would this be better? Are there going to be more stories in it? Are there going to be more stories about administration, more stories about student government? Are there fewer science stories, more science stories, sports on every cover? I don't know.
We've had a staff that had literally 3 people on it over the summer, and it was awesome. They did great work. It killed them.
Right, so it
And
doesn't.
we've had a staff with 50 people on it. This room is entirely full, and it sucked ass. We
So
don't
the real
care.
question is like, how are you? If I were to choose up your question, my question would be, how is this going to be any different? What are you going to do differently? Which I hope we had hit on before, but y'all didn't answer very well, so go for it.
I mean, it'll be different because it's gonna have more variation of content.
So creative writing and whatever else. You said creative writing and then what else?
I mean, like editorials. Everyone's reading editorials written by other students. It's gonna be
Okay, so
something-
that's a legitimate answer.
Okay,
So
yes.
editorials and creative writing. Good.
We've been very feature heavy, and we're in a newsprint format, so people tend to expect more news out of the newspaper. I'd like to have some
News. Well, that's the first time I heard news all day. Thank you, Brian Lynch.
So more news.
Block.
I already touched on it earlier, but special sections with more investigative reporting and bigger clips.
Right, but without any idea how we're actually going to do that. All right. Here's a part of the day where if you guys want to influence these guys voting, if you want to articulate somebody you support, you can say it now. You don't have to.
Are we giving money?
Shut up, man. Shut up.
It's up to you. Does anyone want to say something?
One thing everyone seems to be worried about with Ryan is that he's too nice with deadlines. I don't know about anyone else's experience, but when it comes to whenever I've written for him, he's giving me the second he gives me the article idea, He tells me when it needs to be done and it has to be done by then, and he's always been straightforward with that.
Have you broken?
What's up?
Have you broken deadline?
I don't believe I have.
Alright, so basically that's
You're
really
the
a
exception to the rule.
that's a testament to you.
Well, I'm just saying, he gets his point across that it has to be done.
But you
when
strike,
it
so,
needs to be
so if
done.
anybody would tell you a deadline, would you do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're awesome.
Okay, so.
So it's not you.
Give him $1. The real question is what happens when you
When
didn't
you
turn
don't,
it in,
yeah.
he has to publish
That's
a
what I was
paper
asking.
tomorrow and.
Right, we need to talk to someone less efficient as you. Alright, anybody else wanna say anything? Sabrina, you wanna say anything? You don't work anymore, you have nothing to lose?
Well, my question that I had for Wes before, it's directed towards Wes.
Okay, then go ahead, let's hear it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. After the last actual election, the first thing you did was put your hands down into your face down into your hands, and shook your head, and said, "I should not have voted for Block."
That's not true. Don't tell me what I said.
You said it.
Now the first part is valid. I did bow my
And then you
head.
came to me afterwards, and I asked you why you did that, and you said, "I shouldn't have done that."
What I said was I was torn between her and Greg, and I was. But I did not say I shouldn't have voted for her.
Okay, well, regardless.
What's your opinion?
Yeah, what's your question?
My question is, has she done enough this semester to make you, to
vote for her
solidify
again?
your vote?
We'll find out when we go through it.
Alright, there you go. Do you have any opinion you wanna influence
I knew
these
she was
guys?
getting ready to do that. Because I'm here.
Alright, this is
What was your
weird.
question?
Do you have anything else you wanna say? Cause you used to work here, you don't work here right now, so sometimes, I mean, if you're on staff, you might not wanna say too much, cause you gotta work with people, but I wanna know, you showed up here today, you're kind of an alum, I just wanted to know if you wanted to say anything in general. You don't have to.
I don't have.
Okay.
None of my opinions are personal in any level. I just think that Block, love you as a person. I don't like how you lead. I don't like how you manage this place at all. Lynch, I think you might have it in you, just like everybody else. I'm not totally sure on your leadership skills, or as in to be assertive enough. I'm pretty sure with Emily as your ME, I'm sure she'll whip everybody's asses for you.
That's what I wanted to say was that she's.
But
it's just
and
like
Andrew, I think you might finally have it in you to lead this place. I think you've finally grown enough. But I still see you talking about the preserve, which was the exact same story that you talked about last mock. That you said that you're gonna revamp. So
Okay.
I don't see you actually grown writing wise either.
Alright, thank you. Anybody else? So we're gonna do this voting thing. Alright, so what usually happens is these guys go around, they kind of assess the candidates before they vote, they cast a vote. Who wants to go first?
Wes.
Neil?
Wes. Last.
I usually do.
I'll go first.
Alright, go ahead, somebody.
My vote's for Emily. Ryan, I'm not sure. Coming into the day, you would have had to show you were more of a leader than Block, who's already done it. I'm not sure you're there quite yet. I understand, you came in, you were nervous, we could tell. That's okay, it's your first time. I do think you'll be editor, but I'm not sure that this is your time. Block, you do have a lot to prove to the staff. You didn't want the staff vote. They do want more innovation in the newsroom. This time you can't just say, I'm going to do it, and then come January, you don't do it. Because all that's going to do is breed resentment like it did this fall. But I do think you have enough ideas, but the point now is not just to have them. You have to implement. Or else every week it becomes, well, she said X, and now she's doing Y and Z, instead of doing what she said she was going to do. That's what my vote is.
Anybody
Andrew,
else?
my bad, I didn't mention it.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Andrew, you did better this time to me than you did in spring. But I'm not sure yet that the staff, for whatever reason, there's a disconnect between where you think you are and where the staff thinks you are. That was the reason you only got, I think you got 3 in spring, you got 1 this time with more votes. So you still have a little bit of work to do as far as convincing them that you can take your ideas and put them in this newsroom. So maybe that means starting from within your section, and then this time in 6 months you can say, well, I did A, B, C, D, E, F in my section, and I can extrapolate it to everybody, Because the one woman who spoke on your behalf, she hasn't been here all semester, I value what she said, but how much does she really know about what went on in here since August? you know? So, you still have a way to go, but you did do better. That's it.
Let's go next.
I'll go next. First, I just want to say to the staff in general, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about deadlines and the whining and incessant about deadlines. Get over it. I want to know about content and the product you produce. Not, oh my God, that person missed deadline. You know, when Kretzky talks about me, I'm sure he doesn't say, there was this guy that Jason used to work for UP. He was great at deadlines. He made every deadline. No, he talks about the stories that I wrote and I produced. And you know what? A lot of those stories didn't make deadline. I worked with my editor until it was complete. It wasn't about a deadline. It was about making the story as good as it could be, making it award-winning. So when you whine about these deadlines on and on and on, get over it. And I think that, Andrew, I don't believe did too much better this time around than the last 2 times around. I think you really need to look at the criticism you've been given in the staff votes as well as the panelists and take that to heart. You've said some things like being stubborn and this and that, and you haven't changed at all. When I lost twice, I was told to write more, and the next semester I wrote more, and I wrote more, and I wrote more. And that was one of my biggest weaknesses. And I wrote my ass off until I became one of the best writers in the newsroom. Ryan, I think you were actually, I've never seen someone sit here and say they write 4 to 7 stories a week. That is an impressive feat. That is amazing. And I hope that whoever wins really utilizes that, because that's good. Because this is a bi-weekly paper, it's every other week, you don't get many chances. Even though everyone likes to say, well, we have online, we can write every day, but no one does that. No one actually writes every day for whatever reason. So you have to take every opportunity you can to get as much work produced in your short college career, so that you'll have those clips and you can use those to get a job later on. But you also gave the absolute worst answer I've ever heard in this selection panel about letting the staff vote for everything. Terrible, terrible answer. I think you knew it as you were going through, but instead of just saying, you know what, I was wrong, terrible answer, you doubled down, you tripled down, and you wouldn't give an inch. Bad answer. No newsroom works that way. It can't work that way. There has to be a single point of accountability. If someone came and complained about a story to me, like at my job, oh, well, the staff voted for it. Don't blame me. Like, that doesn't fly. It doesn't work. Emily, you do come in here. You were very confident this time. You admitted, some faults, even though we had to pull your teeth a little bit. But, your answers were the best out of the 3. And hopefully, if you actually, follow this path and you win, if you win, you'll be given those opportunities. One thing before the selection started, you asked me if you could give me a call about something. You don't ever have to ask me. No one ever has to ask me to call me and talk about the UP or journalism. Just do it. I encourage that, and most alum will be there, because that's the one thing that this place produces is very, very loyal alum that will always be willing to help anybody on staff. So my vote is for Emily. I hope that you can take this paper to the next level if you were to win.
Neil or Sonia?
So I'll go, because it sounds like it's close. Yeah, I think, Andrew, we still have this problem where I don't feel like that you heard us last time. Like, diversify, get out there. I thought you did a better interview, but I still feel like you are so focused on science that you aren't seeing what's, the science stories, that you aren't taking into account, especially when you're running to run the whole paper, what you need to have done for the rest of the paper, because it can't be, well, it could be, if you want it to be, a science journal, but then you just ought to run on that platform and see how far it gets you. I don't know, it could be interesting. So, yeah, you could always, you can run again, but I think, maybe try something out of the box after we tell you, at least try something different and see how it fares. So you can at least say, yeah, I tried that and it's not my strength, and I defer to somebody else on that when I become an editor, but I can say that I've done that and I understand that. And I think, you were the person who, when we talked about beats, you weren't so sure about beats, and I think there is a value to somebody. It sounds like we actually do have a beat person working on student government. There's some value in having some consistency. If people just come, we'll just write whatever people come bring to us. You know, you're gonna have a lot of people who want to do the movie review, the band review, and until they get to know something, I mean, you don't know until you send somebody out there. Just a good reporter or somebody who has just an innate curiosity, you send them to write something and they just go figure it out. And maybe they don't want to write that stuff for a long time, but they've proven that they can go figure it out. I mean, I think the very first story I did was about some guy running for mayor. I had no clue whatsoever. I called him, and I had to get over the beginning reporter stuff, like calling somebody who's got power and asking questions that make any flippin' sense. So you should try it, even if that's not. I got out of government, like that kind of reporting as fast as I could. But you know, now I cover different governments, but it's much better. But you got to try it. I like some of your ideas, Ryan. You know, you were very organized. It seemed like you put a lot of effort into writing, because a lot of people just show up for the interview, and so I'm glad that you put so much thought into it. That's cool. And that you write more than most candidates. I can't, there are a few candidates way back who wrote a lot before they got here. And I like that it wasn't just sports, that you kind of dabbled in other stuff. But I think this whole business of having everybody vote is really, I think, more of a, first of all, yes, nobody does that. Because you do, I think he hit the nail on the head, you need accountability. When somebody comes storming into your office and saying that is the worst story I've ever seen, it was horribly reported, it's libelous, it's I don't know, you know, it's horrible, you have to be able to say, yes, and I mean, you can't just say, well, we voted on it, and this was a bad decision. You know, you gotta own it. And so the only way you're gonna own it is if at least you have final say. I think probably if you get more familiar with how, you know, if you go do some, go to other newsrooms, see how they do it. If your editors are doing their job and they're reporting to you, you can have an intelligent discussion about what story goes best. And by the way, this whole business of the secret story that got subbed in, I don't care. All I care about is I picked it up and I read it. Now, there were holes in that story. As a matter of fact, there were holes in the other two stories, or at least the other one story about being locked out, that I was frustrated as a reader about. And I'd rather you fix that than I don't care about how it got there. Just fix the stories. And I think that, so this business of voting on the story is just, I'm fearing that it's indicative of some other stuff, like not feeling yet like you can own a decision, that you aren't there yet, and I think that's a problem. But I think if you, you know, maybe if you move up, if Emily put you in, if she became editor and you worked for her, and you became in charge of your presence online or something like that, then you own those decisions. What is it going to be like when somebody comes back next time and says, this website looks like shit, or these stories are awful, then you were going to have to own that. And maybe from there you can get a little feeling of like, yes, I'm going to own this. And I was disappointed that you didn't follow up on the stories that we talked about. Or, you know,
It wasn't for lack of trying.
And the idea that beats are going to start tomorrow, and then your answer for that was really inadequate. That, I mean, like, it's one thing, like, I tried, and my SG reporter quit, my administration person got lost, and I failed 3 weeks in. That's one thing. But it sounds to me truly like you did not even try. So I would say don't promise shit that you can't deliver. And at least try, and if you don't have time, then this is the art of delegation. You, editor, or whoever you pick in the room, you go out and assign beats and make it work, or at least give it a college try and be done with it. But I think that the EP was better this semester than it had been in the past. I thought it was getting meatier, and that could be because some people are sticking around and getting, you know, their hints in, but it's still, there are stories that we could drive polls through, like big chunks. And so somebody needs to get on the editing plan here. Or, ask, there are people in the room who can see those things if maybe you're too close and you need to rely on them more.
And they got 3 advisors
So you can't miss that. Part of it is being in the room. I did notice one criticism, Emily, that you weren't here enough. I don't know how accurate that is, but I know it's the new day and you can all make phone calls from your car instead of being in the newsroom. There's great value in being in the room together.
She's been in the room.
Everybody needs to be in the room. So I'm glad you're in the room. Everybody should be in the room frequently, just so you can talk to each other and get ideas and bounce them off something. And so that you aren't running up against a deadline going, oh, I never thought about calling whoever or whatever. So my vote is for you. I think you need to do, so you've gotten this far, now you need to raise the bar. And I think you need to make some wise choices about how to use Brian, Andrew, and everybody else in the room.
Neil?
Andrew, I'm going to borrow Wes's word, disconnect. I think that it's pretty clear that your impression of yourself and what you can do here is very, very from what the staff seems to think. So the staff doesn't have your back. I love having the science section. I love when you come and ask me questions about things and we collaborate and stuff. I'm not sure you, and I'm not just going to, you've heard it from everybody else here. I think that you really need to plug into what everyone here is saying in terms of your ability to lead, what your weaknesses are, try to correct that if you want to sit in this chair at some point. You can't go into this job and have so many people saying comments that that you would not be the right choice for editor. So you have to have someone winning in that sale, and staff support's important. So my vote won't go to you this time, but I am respectful of your diligence in continuing stubbornness, maybe. What were you going to use here? To continue persistence, thank you. Continuing to go for the grass rate. Yes, chair. Emily, you are a really good writer, and you are one of the best and brightest here, I think. But I didn't hear a vision. I really didn't hear one. And somebody said something that was very, very astute a little earlier. Somebody who's fairly new to the mix while you're out of the room, and they said that you seem overconfident. And I've always thought that was your Achilles heel. That you weren't as open-minded as you could be. That you sort of had an agenda sometimes, or you made up your mind and you couldn't be swayed. I think it's really important for an editor to be able to make executive decisions, which you showed you could do, okay? And which is what you did for UP6. However, there's a valid issue here of you could have made an executive decision in a very open communicative way. That's another way to make an executive decision, not to do it in a way where a lot of people feel like they weren't moved into it. But also you have to sort of be sensitive to staff views of you, concerns, and you can't be too cocky. It's a really tough balancing walk. You have to listen to the staff and override them at times, but make sure they know that when you do that, you heard them out very thoroughly and sincerely. So I'm concerned too that you had all those promises last time, and many of them did not come through. I'm concerned that beats never ever happened here. And tomorrow was a long time ago. I'm concerned that you're not really. I think some really good things happened this semester, and you wrote 2 really damn good columns this semester, right? Your column on the bridges, just nailed it, okay? And you got the engineering department to give you the money, give you an apology, and that column you did on the was it Orchard, right? The plagiarist. That was really good too. You had a couple of really big impacts, and you had a semester with some unusual turbulent crap that was going on. Media Mate, and having to go back to tabloid, and then you get put on this JTF thing. And yeah, you were pulling a bunch of different directions on that. But mainly, I think that it is time. I think that I'm going to pass and not give my vote this time. Not that I don't have a lot of respect for things I do, but I think the staff is not as much either, that they're not as behind you as they were previously. But then I think that Ryan deserves a shot. I think that he deserves a shot at running this place. I'm going to give it to Ryan. I'm going to give you my vote. I'm not sure why based on the responses today. She's had a lot of really inappropriate responses, including what Jason was saying about the democracy thing. You can't be too democratic in this setting, obviously. Okay? But you did have a vision. You did come to us with a plan. You did save the dirty word training, which is something I don't hear a whole lot of discussion tonight. I think that I sense from you that you were sincerely wanting to make this a better place, and take comfort in the fact that you've got Creighton as your enemy. I don't think she's going to be steamrolled as easily. I'm very concerned that you are not going to be able to make executive decisions, but I'm going to let that go. I'm going to throw the dice, give caution to the wind, throw caution to the wind, because I think that you don't have to necessarily absolutely be able to do that to get through a semester here. And I think you are a hard worker and very prolific. You're one of the best writers here, I think. And so I'm going to give you my vote. Michael.
I'm going to disagree with you, which is really cool. What I like about journalism is it's not accounting, and it's not computer programming. There's not one way to do it, right? I mean, if you're an accountant and you add up things wrong, you can go to jail. And if you're a computer programmer and it doesn't work, there's a blue screen of death. So Neil and I can have totally different opinions. I want to do something different. Usually I introduce these guys at the beginning, and I'm going to introduce them now at the end for a reason. So Jason Parsley was editor of the UP, covered student government as a beat. As you heard, he won $5,500 in local, national, and regional awards for covering student government, doing incredibly stupid shit. Not boring stuff, fascinatingly weird stuff, like embezzling money, forcing a student body president to resign. When he was editor, he had a very senior staff, but he tried some, you talk about vision, he had the stupidest vision I've ever heard. And you guys know Professor Balin, you seen that guy around? Professor Balin hated Jason with the passion of 1,000 dying suns.
Did he?
Yes, because Jason's idea, the big idea, you guys were asking about big ideas, and I'm going to do more stuff. His big idea was the website's going to have all the news on it. And the print edition, which is weekly, is just going to be a special issue every week. Special issue. And one of those special issues was just going on the breezeway and doing the man on the street interview and asking weird-ass questions. And Balin hated this. And it was a controversy in the newsroom. But you know what? And some staff didn't like it, some of them did. And it was awesome, because everyone had something to argue about and sink their teeth into. It was great. That's what we're talking about with Big Vision. Sonia Isger was editor of The Alligator, which I don't know if you know is the largest student newspaper in the world. And when she was editor, talk about, I didn't have time to do all my ideas. She was also outstanding print graduate, which meant at the University of Florida, she had the highest GPA in the entire school when she graduated. The same semester, she was running a daily newspaper, 5 days a week. It came out. She found the time. She found the staff to do it. So knowing that these are the people that are voting, I will say this now. Reading the staff votes from you guys, these are the most arrogant, immature staff votes I have seen ever. Every so often we have one of those. In fact, before you guys vote, I read you some of the dumbest staff votes that we've ever gotten. Brandon Ballinger is a douchebag. I read that. Yet these votes are terrible. They're personal attacks. They're about stuff that's inside the newsroom that no one cares about. And they have a certain arrogance, like you guys are experts in this stuff. I get this sense. I will disagree with Neil that Emily is arrogant or overconfident. I will say that that is a problem of the entire editing staff here. And the blame that I would ascribe to Emily is she didn't fix it. I'm sick and tired of these editors having this attitude like they know what the hell they're doing. The best staffs were the ones that worked really hard, made mistakes, and knew they didn't know everything. Jason was here even winning awards. He would look back on his own stories and hate them and try to improve them. I go to news meetings now, I sit in the meetings, I know we don't like to talk about meetings too much, but those meetings are terrible. And the biggest arrogance that I hear, and to defend Block from Home, because there's a lot not to defend her for, But the biggest defense is, I hear this all the time. Well, Block didn't motivate me. Well, Block didn't share that with me. Block didn't tell me. Well, did you ask? Did you ask what the hell's going on here? Did you look at the progress? Did you email people? You're supposed to be journalists. Even if you're not going to do journalism for the rest of your life, you're going to be in charge of some stuff. And guess what doesn't fly as an executive? I know it sucks that I'm an executive. I know that probably tells you all you need to know about the state of American corporations. But as an executive, I can tell you this. If I don't know something, it's my fault. So I think this is a problem of the staff. And one reason I can't vote for you is because I think you'll get steamrolled by some of these editors. I think that you are, if you win, and maybe you do win. I have no skin in this game. I'll work with whoever. But if you win, I have a feeling that these editors are going to steamroll you. And you're going to have to deal with the same issue that Block dealt with. And hopefully you'll deal with it in a different way. My biggest beef, and I've told this to Emily, is she didn't make any changes around here. Things go wrong. Editors don't get along. You change stuff. You move people around. You change job responsibilities until you suit them. But if you become editor, I don't know that you're going to actually lead anything. And the whole point about why we're harping on this voting thing is because what it really shows is a lack of awareness of how long it takes to do things. Because setting aside their argument about why you don't vote is the argument of like, how much time is that going to take? The reason there's a hierarchy is shit's got to happen pretty quick, even in a bi-weekly publication. How's that going to work? How are things going to move at a clip? And I don't know if that's the case. The other thing I didn't hear, one thing in your favor, you're the only one who said it, you said it offhand at the end of this, is this staff knows nothing about news. We've had people here that have interned as news reporters. Patrick was an intern, got great reviews from what I can tell talking to people at TC Palm, yet this is the only place where the sum of its parts is less than the whole, right? Because we don't do any news. I didn't hear anything in this conversation about more news. I heard a lot of talk about a feature blog, a fashion blog, which is good. I've talked to these guys. I think they're doing a really good job with a fashion blog. It's a fashion blog. Only people interested in fashion are going to look at this. The thing about news, you guys think news is all boring? When he's taking down a student body president, everyone's reading that because it's fascinating. This guy embezzled all that money? How do you do that shit? And he uncovered that. When we write about news around here, hey, student government hired a stripper? That's weird, man. That's an interesting story. News interests everybody if it's done right. Faculty, staff, administration, and students. Now, Joe Longboarder in the Breezeway doesn't give a shit. Max is always going to ask a question about this particular freshman. I don't know that freshman. He might be a dumbass. I'm not here to go to the lowest common denominator, but the intelligent student needs to know some stuff about their money. And all of your story ideas sucked. All of your story ideas were like, body image. I'll have questionnaires to the athletes. Well, what if they don't fill them out? That's not a story idea. You're just throwing shit against the wall and hoping that someone's going to do your job for you. Hey, we're going to go into Breezeway and ask some people some questions. That's having other people do your job for you. If they don't say anything good, you got nothing. That's my biggest beef. I voted for Andrew once because I actually believe, and this panel has actually voted in the past for someone who lost the staff vote, particularly because they wanted to shake up the staff, because they didn't have faith in the rest of the editors here. And they figured, you know what do we got to lose? Because this existing staff, they don't get it. And we're around for a long time. We play in the long game here. I've been here 16 years. I've seen people do exactly some of the same crap. Nothing's new to me here. And I've seen those people, 5 years later, they don't got a job, right? When they were here, Kretsky, I know exactly what I'm doing. Don't worry about it. Okay, I hope you're right, because I don't want you not to work, right? I mean, you guys have to work so you can pay my Social Security in a few years. But I haven't seen it. Was it a joke?
Next year.
Next year? Yeah, it's getting there. Take an early retirement at this point. So I'm just how distraught I am. I'm actually leaning to voting for Andrew. I would have voted for you. All you had to do in this selection was answer the questions better than them. And trust me, you weren't here for it. It was a low bar, right? All your answers are vague. You should be coming in here and running on the fact that you don't have the staff vote. You should be you should have been telling these guys, this place, here's a litany of the things that I think are wrong. And yes, I don't have the staff votes, but if I'm put in charge, I'll make it work. And if these editors don't agree with me, I will replace those editors. Because that's what a new editor can do. Just because you're existing news editor, feature editor, art director, photo editor, doesn't mean that you have that job next semester. And I love it when an editor sometimes gets reelected and then changes everything, and the editors always say the same thing. That's not fair. It's like, it happens all the time, man. A new publication comes on board, you replace the staff. So you could have actually won this selection. And if you're going to run for the real thing, you could actually win. But what you have to do is you have to do more what Sonia said. You have to have a bigger vision of this place. You have to make a list of what's wrong. And you have to pretty much make the argument that this group can't fix it. The new people, there's some great new people. When these guys take over, I have great hope for this newspaper. The current editing staff individually are awesome. They can run their own fashion website, great news reporter, great writer, awesome sports editor, produces all this copy. Some reason when they get together, it sucks. I didn't mention we have a great art director now. My business hired him, paying him. Greg's a great writer. I still think the best story this semester, even though it obviously has holes, you always do when you're money and stuff. That student government story, that's the newsiest story we've run. That's it. That's the only story. And no one gave it any love amongst the three of you. That he wrote the kind of story that Jason would have wrote.
That was a high water mark on your agenda.
Yeah, that was good.
That was an excellent job.
And I haven't said anything about Neil because I figured you already knew him, but I worked with him at the Sun Sentinel. He was a reporter when I was a reporter, became an environmental reporter, which is the hard as hell thing to do, and actually ran his own little institute thing for a while. So he knows his shit too. We might have a disagreement on this vote, but I'm going to vote grudgingly for you. But I think...
Grudgingly? Whoa, hold on. First of all, I would never call her arrogant. I just want to...
Oh, I call her arrogant.
I you were...
Sorry.
You called her arrogant.
You call overconfident.
Yeah, overconfident. So I just want to clarify that because Emily doesn't fit.
I don't want to misquote
Okay.
anybody.
So grudgingly explain.
So I don't think actually your problem is arrogance or overconfidence. I think it's actually that you settle. So you knew all these problems, and you're smart. You knew all these problems that existed because we've told you they've existed and you've acknowledged they existed, and you made no changes here. You complained just like everyone else has complained. Every staff vote that complains about the way things operate. By the way, all you guys who voted and said Block did this or Block did that, she knows this because we talked about it. But she didn't fix any of it. She didn't change it. And this is the time to do it, right? Make changes now. Make big mistakes and apologize for them because in 10 years you're not going to be able to make big mistakes without getting fired and the kids will starve. So that's exactly
Shit.
right. It's a little harsh, but it's true. So you knew these problems existed and you haven't fixed them. The reason I would have gathered that Neil is throwing his vote to Ryan is that, you know, he kind of figures, I know what I'm going to get here. I'm not sure what I'm going to get here, but the upside is higher.
Hope and change.
Hope and change. So when you run for this in front of the real selection committee, you have a lot of work to do because here's what happens. In the real selection committee, these guys have the advantage. This mock selection process means that they can fix their problems, right? And their problems are more linear. You gave some dumbass answers. You gave really vague answers. You have to address this whole big issue. You have more thinking to do. Ryan could come up, if he's got at least one vote here today, he could come up and bite you on the ass next weekend if he just addresses this stuff. Like things like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't say some of this dumbass stuff anymore, right? The one thing that you did well, but I didn't think you did it because you really believed it, you just did it because you figured out the system, is when you don't know something at any job interview or any time as a leader, you say, I was wrong and I didn't know. People like that. Like, oh, okay, well, that's honest. Thank you very much. People love it when you apologize. So you did that today? I feel like you did it because you knew you were supposed to do it, but not because you like really believed it. Like you figured out the system for running for editor. And you're like, yeah, well, there are some people here that weren't convinced of the sincerity of that. And then you just doubled down, right? You just doubled down on a dumb answer. And that is the number one way, not only to not get elected, but to have it haunt you and be a ball and chain for when you run in the future. What about that thing you said last time? So my vote is for you. I would not be surprised if next week you win. And I wouldn't be surprised if you actually play to your strengths, that you are basically like, think of yourself as Hitler.
Oh, yay.
I'm just saying.
Down.
Hitler couldn't take over Weimar Germany if everything was going well, but inflation's at 300%. It sucks. That's your in. This is the Weimar Republic, the way this place runs right now. We've had like one news story, maybe two news stories, kind of by accident. Right? We don't have this urgency. Emily doesn't possess this urgency to do and to fix and to be. And you can play on that. You can take over in a bloody putsch. Make sense?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Hitler.
Hitler.
not a dumbass.
Don't be dumbass, sense of urgency. All right, I wanna thank you guys. The next selection, when is the actual, they moved it again?
Thursday, okay, now let me remind everybody, this is Thursday.
Yep.
And, so SMAP starts, I think, at 9 in the morning, but the actual editor selection process is supposed to begin about 11:30
On Thursday.
on Thursday.
Which, by the way, I believe they move around on purpose because they don't want you there. Because when they do a lot of other position selections in here for homecoming director and stuff, and I once sat on that panel many years ago, they don't want students there asking questions and seeing stuff. Like, why would we want democracy? We're a university. So, if you can go to the real one, you should, because they also have free food. And also, you can ask some of the same questions. They're supposed to take questions, they do it grudgingly, but you should be asking questions, and you should actually be pimping for your candidates. You should be actually making sure you tell the selection committee what you want, because some of the selection committee is SG people, and people have nothing to do with the UP, which I think is a stupid idea, but that's the way they decided to do it. All right, so I hope you guys will do that. Next Friday, there's still a staff meeting. I would appreciate if anybody later on wants to suggest how we could redo this process or your own thoughts. I would also urge you guys, I always think you should run for editor. Andrew might lose 3 times in a row, but he gets an amazing amount of respect for sitting up here in the uncomfortable chair every time. That's invaluable experience. 5 years from now, no one will give a crap whether he won or lost. The experience that he took from it will last a long time. I know Sonia does too, and Jason, that we use some of the experience from the UP in our careers even decades later. No one gives a shit about our stories. Sonia and I once went back to the Alligator to look up all our awesome stories. I was up there for hiring some interns. And we go back to the Alligator, we looked at our awesome stories, and we looked at them and said, oh my God, these are sucky. These are terrible. But it was the experience of doing them. So these guys are all getting that experience. Ryan, everyone says you were really nervous as hell. Of course you were. It's the first time you're doing this. When was the last time you were good at anything the first time you did it? So if you win, great. If you don't win, you're going to be better next time. So I hope all of you have whatever was said about all 3 of these people, I hope you have a lot of respect for them. I know I do because they sat up here. And if you ever do it, I will respect you the same. So thank you very much. Oh. And thank you to these guys for taking time out of their lives to do this. Well, get the help, get up, do something.
Like, well, they did.